What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Gun Experience Podcast, where we discuss all things firearm and self-defense related. We're your hosts, Brian and Tristan. Let's get into it. So one of the first things I wanted to kind of discuss, and I swear it's like been the hot topic this last few months, but we've probably done a half a dozen news interviews and just different things, and that's Texas constitutional carry.
Of course.
Yes.
Of course.
So I guess for everyone listening, what is constitutional carry?
Sure. So constitutional carry, my understanding of it is as long as you're legally allowed to own a handgun, so be over the age of 21, no criminal history, you can legally purchase it, you can legally carry it in most circumstances. Now, if a sign has what is known as a 30-06 or a 30-07.
That's in Texas.
In Texas, right. That's a no-go.
Yeah.
Or if they say unlicensed firearm possession, that big long sign that says like $10,000 fine and however many years in prison. If you see those three signs, it's a no-go. Of course, schools, things like that. Mm-hmm. But there's no need for a license to carry in most circumstances. So if you're going to a restaurant, they don't have the signs, typically you're good.
So it's pretty much a way to forego like having to get a concealed carry permit, or in Texas they call it license to carry. Mm-hmm. Those 30-06, 30-07 signs, what Tristan's referring to is pretty much you go into a business and they have the sign that says, hey, no concealed carry in this, or I'm sorry, no open carry allowed on this
premise. 7.
Yeah. Or the other one's going to be like, hey, just no firearms, period.
Yeah. So the 6, I think is, mm-hmm. Concealed. 7. Is there one that's combined for both?
I think there is, and it does say like it has both of those numbers on it. It's pretty much you just need to know the 30.06.
You go ahead and turn around and go put it back in your car, and at that point,
just go home.
Yeah.
So, it's a lot of the interviews that have been brought up, by local news, or we just did the Newsy, which is like a big online news outlet. They're, I think, coming from a place where like, well, is it going to be the Wild West? And, is everyone getting guns? And then, they do a lot of interviews themselves. And some of them kind of have a slant, like, totally against it. And it seems kind of like against firearms, period. But others are completely neutral, which I appreciated. I didn't get any gotcha questions. But, they interviewed the police departments. They interviewed gun stores like us, just kind of get different perspectives.
Yeah.
Why, I guess, not to turn into an interviewer here, but I'm curious, and I think I have my kind of thoughts on it. Why do you think so many states are adopting constitutional carry?
Sure. I think there's, and I'm not a psychologist, not a sociologist, or anything like that. It's just personal perspective here. Just my understanding of it is most states with constitutional carry invoked or in place, it doesn't seem to have the kind of gun violence in those states that you're seeing in other states that are 100% against it, the may issue states, not the shall issue states, for like your concealed carry or license to carry. So Illinois, New York, stuff like that, seeing a lot more heavy violence, and it might just be a little bit more densely populated, but I would like to say that it's just going back to being more in line with the Constitution. But I think that it also goes into the fact that, man, most states like Texas, everyone swore there was going to be this giant spike in gun violence. And like said, we might as well, your Toyota Corolla is the new, horseback, and everybody's going to go shoot up the saloon. Like it hasn't turned into that I've seen. The news, I feel like, would be all over it, and I haven't seen much of anything.
Right. It's weird, and I kind of question it too. And I guess the reason why I'm going to pose some of these questions because it's what it's been asking me doing these interviews. And
so you had it, so now it's my turn. I got it.
Oh yeah. So I was about to go buy a horse. I was ready.
You had your 6-shooter on your hip.
Yes,
I see.
Yes. Lever guns are back in.
They are. They're hipster now.
So, just you wait. We talked about there's not these huge spikes in gun violence or anything like that, and for a state, like, why would? I guess this is more of a rhetorical question. Like, why would a state just be like, oh, you know what? We were charging everybody that wanted to carry, X amount of money to get a permit. Same thing, dealers, trainers, things like that. They're charging for these classes and all that. Like, on one side of it, it's a big revenue loss for the state,
Sure.
and, we can talk about the business side of it that we saw too later, but, so I definitely don't think it's not a money thing. I guess deep down, I hopefully think that it's a way for states to, I guess, give more security to the Second Amendment and kind of just, instead of taking more rights away, just giving some of those back. So, I look at it as, it's kind of a small buffer to, those looking to chip away at more firearms rights.
Right.
So it's a very pro-gun stance,
For
obviously,
sure.
or decision. But man, it is sweeping across. I mean, so many states, not just all red states.
It's like 30 plus right now.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. So it's interesting, and I mean, the statistics don't really show more gun violence or anything like that. And if anything, and I think these numbers are kind of dulled down a bit. You see more firearms preventing crime by private citizens.
Right.
But so the other part of that, and before we even talk about the business side of things, so I mean, I guess going back, I mean, do you have an opposing viewpoint to that? Like, do you kind of see where I'm tracking on this?
Like I can kind of see where the initial thought of it, there should be some fear behind it, and there's I guess two sides to every story, but I feel like now that we've been in it for a few months, I feel like there's a byproduct, of where the LTC was. If you've taken an LTC class, you know how extremely easy it is, especially the shooting proficiency. Now, I guess the one big part of it would be the non-confrontational kind of resolution, learning to use your words like we're back in kindergarten. But it's good to bring that stuff back, especially when we talk about life or death situations.
Sure.
If you can always de-escalate. So I could see that isn't a part of it. That could be one viewpoint that I could agree to, that that's what needs to be brought up, especially as handgun classes continue to grow. But outside of that, I can't find anything personally that I would say, this is so bad at all.
So there's two things that I want to make sure we hit on, and the first one's going to be police. And the reason why I bring this up is because every time I've been interviewed about it, this is one of the main, I guess, competitors against constitutional carry. So the other part is people that maybe would carry under this new act. So because I think there's a big spectrum there. But going to the police side of things, so most of the times I've been interviewed, it's like, hey, whatever, police chief so and so, or you have sheriff over here, whatever. They said they are very much against it, or they give you these percentages of police being against it. Obviously, I think all kind of individuals here, and then of course as a business, we definitely support police. So, that being said, I do think there is some maybe misunderstanding and biases within police departments, and this is very generalization, like to where I guess my personal thought on their thought process on this is, well, we are the superior because we are, we're wearing a badge, we have the training, we are the protectors or whatever. So we know more and we are more proficient with firearms than, your casual, firearms owner. So I think there's a little bit of a sense of hierarchy maybe,
Sure.
to where, and of course, understanding that it's a very dangerous job too. So
100%.
I 100% don't want to, disregard that. And I mean, obviously we don't want people with, malice in their heart to, hopefully use a firearm inappropriately. But what other things can you think of for police being against this?
So I 100% back to Blue. I think we've said that now, but it's true of my family, friends, law enforcement, grew up in that kind of a household. I very much support this. I think it's interesting, though, that you're hearing a lot more of this from police chiefs and everybody, because my understanding is most of the time that's just an administrative position. But I've heard very, very, very few street beat cops, detectives actually come out and say, hey, this is why we don't like it. And I think that's probably for a number of reasons. And, just talking, everybody's going to have their own perspectives. But understand this. So let's just take for instance, like a traffic stop. I would assume most police officers don't know. You have to go out there assuming that they've got 3 saws, 1 240, and an RPG.
Oh,
in the
dude,
back.
there's videos that I'll never forget. You don't know what cops are rolling up to. I mean, the one video that always sticks out in my mind is, I think it was like a male and female officer came up to maybe in like Florida, of course. The cop, the car pulled over, and immediately before, I mean, they could even run the plates or anything like that, dude comes out and just starts unloading, rounds into the cop car with the AK or something like that. I mean, it was a terrible video. So
I hate to say it, but I don't think constitutional carry was around back then either.
yeah, I mean, and this wouldn't affect that. But to your point, I think, cops, they have to be, protective.
For sure.
I mean, you don't know what you're walking into. That said, though, I don't think the fear is getting more, again, malicious people with firearms. I think it's kind of on the other side of that. I think police departments are afraid of, something happening, and you have all of these, wannabe heroes, so everyone's got a gun. So now you have,
I can see that.
Instead of them just rolling up to the scene, and looking, assessing the situation, things like that, or de-escalating, whatever. Now you have, a bunch of trigger happy,
And that's where it comes down to, kind of like we spoke before, the LTC test, outside of the written form of it, when it comes down to the shooting part, if you've never taken the test before, or I guess really if you have, we all know how extremely easy.
Sure.
That test wasn't, designed to hold a high bar. It was a minimum requirement. So I would have to say that it's going to come down to individuals training beyond that regardless.
So that's the other thing. So now, it goes back to the hierarchy thing, like we have more training than you. I kind of want to throw the flag on that a little bit. Well, that's the thing. And again, this is in generals, and with all due respect, kind of thing. You have police departments getting defunded, or lack of funding, lack of training available. A lot of these departments, if you want to get trained, God bless, go do it on your own. The city of XYZ isn't paying for it, kind of thing. And where there's still, and again, this is not as a whole, there's still a lot of police out are just anti-gun. So the only time that they ever use their firearm is to qualify, and that's once a year. And the qualification is almost like the LTC, qual. For the most part, it's super simple. So I would really make a strong argument that as a whole, a lot of police are not as well trained as you think they are in firearm proficiency.
And I think that, some cities I've heard numbers of we're allocated 50 rounds a month. And it comes down to the personal officer wanting to say, hey, I take this seriously. I take this as, life or death. And I think there are a lot that do. And they say, I'll go invest and buy another 500, 600 rounds, even though it's stupid expensive right now. We get that. And they're still trying to get out there and train and do the best that they can. But I think we're also hitting on some of the outliers. There's outliers to both sides. I would say that the individual citizen who consistently practices, though, may not be 100% all the way up. You can't say, hey, I'm a cop now. That's not it at all, because there's, hands-on training using other forms and methods. Totally get that. But when it comes purely to firearms proficiency, and you put 2 individuals up to a stress test of, I shoot this much, and, the regular cop off the street, I can't say 100% for certain that I would believe any cop off the street would beat every single civilian.
And again, it's easy to
speak in general.
Pick out, this is very general. I guess we're just kind of speaking to the some of the arguments that have been brought up and a lot of the questions that are asked in these interviews. And it's kind of made me think, because I'm on camera responding to it, and it's like, trying to represent the business, but also be honest. So I always thought that was interesting and to look at it. And I think you were starting to kind of hit on it. A lot of these are statements from, law enforcement agencies are from administrative, positions.
Yeah.
So people looking to get reelected, or maybe, get, assigned to that position by their mayor, whatever, or maybe they're looking to move into another
agency somewhere.
So I do think there is a lot of that. So there's some of the grandstanding or kind of wishy-washy, responses. So, and we talked about a couple of times. So, like again, Texas being the license to carry, so I came from Ohio, and that test, I think it's gotten a lot more lax since, but it was 8 hours in the classroom, and then 8 hours on the range. So it was a full weekend deal. It was cool, and I actually went through twice. I went through once myself, and then I went, I think, with my mom, like just to kind of go in again, because I had a really good instructor and guy was super passionate. I think all he did was charge you for like the course material, so it wasn't even like him. Wow. Yeah, so it's it's good. I guess it's very impactful, like a good trainer, a good teacher.
Yeah, it was a great experience.
Yeah. So, but for 8 hours, man, that's a lot. But it really makes you think. Just of everything, the laws, or the what ifs. You have a responsibility for carrying a firearm.
100%.
Anyway, so that was in Ohio, so it was like 16 hours in total, and then you had to schedule an interview with your local county sheriff, and you had to actually go into the office, shake the guy's hand, have a 10-minute conversation with him, and then at that point they would thumbs up or thumbs down if you got your license or not. So it wasn't
interesting.
I mean, this was, I don't know, more than 10 years ago, but, and again, I think it's gotten more lax, but in Texas here, it's not quite that difficult. Yeah.
It's not that.
You get 4 hours of class time, and then just qualification. So qualification is fairly short distance.
I think it's 3 yards, 7 yards, 15 yards.
Yeah, and it's you have to get so many. It's a point system, so you have to score so well. Yep. And most people end up passing. If you've never shot a gun before, maybe not. So it's definitely it's an intro level. Test. It's pretty easy.
I mean, it's not making you rise to the occasion. It is the bare minimum. I'm curious though. Before you move on, do you remember that conversation with the sheriff?
Vaguely. Like I remember the whole process and going through, and like I had to schedule a meeting to go to the it was like Medina County Sheriff, and you go through all the security, and you excuse me.
He says it's the jail cell if you mess up.
Yeah, no, it was just they're judging your character, and they could just like, man, you need some different deodorant denied.
Yeah, okay.
And, whatever it is.
Chicken or steak. If you choose the wrong answer, it's game over.
And the license expired a lot shorter there too. It was just I think it was maybe every, it was either every 3 or 5 years. So it was a short window. And every time you had to renew it, you had to go back down and interview.
Oh man.
You didn't have to do all the qualification. You didn't have to do all the classrooms.
He didn't say like, "What's up, Brian?" Like
no,
next time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I feel like that's all that dude must have done was just meet
interviews.
People. But they made money doing it and whatever.
Well, it's an administrative position, right?
So yeah.
Got for assistance.
So Texas is a little bit easier. Like I just renewed mine,
nice.
Which I do want to hit on, like why people still want LTC in these constitutional carry states. But so I was able to renew mine online, and I think I got it within like a week and a half. Mailed to me.
Once we moved, I had to do the same thing. It's super fast and super easy.
Right. So the reasons why people would still want a LTC license. So again, just to kind of reiterate, constitutional carry allows you to carry, open carry or concealed carry, most importantly, pretty much anywhere, right? I mean, anywhere except, again, the restricted places. So, federal buildings, schools, or any businesses.
Bars, 51%. Yeah. Places,
That's a Texas thing too. So, again, speaking from Ohio, you could go into just a straight up bar. I mean, the most food that they had was some moldy, chicken fingers or whatever.
The old peanuts from the 60s,
off the floor. And the biggest thing is though, but if you're caught, with alcohol in your system, even if it's 0.001, you're in trouble.
Oh wow,
so,
okay.
Be careful with mouthwash you get. Yeah. So that's their thing. It's like, you can go to a bar, which is convenient too, and but they're like, if there's any type of alcohol, and having that firearm and that LT or that I think they call it a CCW there. It pretty much made you open to getting blood tested or anything like that, if they wanted to. So
it just wouldn't be worth it. Right.
So I mean, they may have changed that since, but that was then. So here it's that 51%. So 51% of the business
alcohol sales.
Comes from alcohol sales, you cannot carry in that establishment. So, but for the most part, that allows you to carry, concealed pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
Texas actually has pretty cool castle doctrine too. Like, we consider our vehicles, part of your castle here. So you can actually roll around before constitutional carry and without a concealed carry license. So
but it couldn't be on you.
Right. It couldn't be on you, but you could have a loaded firearm in the car.
I think it went a little more depth into that. I think it's like loaded handgun, but I think a long gun couldn't be loaded. It was a weird, like how it was stated kind of thing. And I could be backwards or completely wrong.
Well, I guess I'm sure. I mean, I'm not super up on my law. I'm pretty ignorant to that, but
yes,
just comparing it to some other
states, yeah, for sure.
Like you had to travel firearm in one compartment and ammunition in a separate compartment. So you could have the ammo in the front seat, but your gun had to be in the trunk or wherever.
Yeah, so like my family lives up in Illinois, and now and I'm like, I looked at the laws. I'm like, no, it's just no. I'll carry a slingshot, I guess. That's about it. Even then, I'm like, maybe not.
Right. So with this, there's so much crossover now. So it's like, well, the LTC kind of feels moot if you don't need to do that, right? So why would I want to take a class? Why would I want to pay the $45 for the license? Like, why?
So, the greatest part is, do you still have family in Ohio?
Yeah.
Can you actually pull up a reciprocity map?
Sure.
So
for the Texas LTC?
Yeah, I know USCCA has a good one. So anyways, the reciprocity map, when you get a license to carry in Texas, it is super awesome because now you can carry across state lines. So constitutional carry stops at the Texas border as a Texas resident. Now, another state may have constitutional carry, but if you're not a resident of that state, it's 50-50 whether they're going to allow you to carry there or not. So having an LTC, though, you can carry across state lines. So let's check out this map.
So everything on the map here, and we're looking at, pretty much, well, I guess, all, including Alaska and Hawaii. So I was going to say all CONUS states. So, in Texas here, everything that's surrounding us, we can travel to. So what that means is I could have that firearm in my waistband, and so say from Ohio. So I'm going to be going through whether it's Louisiana or Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, and then into Ohio. I can go through each one of those states legally with a concealed firearm, on my person. And that's because all those states recognize my Texas LTC in some way. There's pretty much some of the coastal states, California, Oregon, Washington, New York, all those little small states that we were forced to learn in, fourth grade.
That was the last time I remember.
They don't count. So same thing like Illinois, Minnesota. Those are like really the states that don't, in Hawaii. They don't, recognize pretty much anybody's concealed carry.
No, they don't.
So one of the pros to currently, getting your LTC or maybe maintaining your, concealed carry license to carry is reciprocity.
100%.
So that means if I get pulled over, in Oklahoma and I have my firearm on me, I'm not going to, jail because, they recognize that I'm okay to carry that firearm concealed.
Now, like a big thing is still, just because you have a Texas LTC and you go to another state, like I think it's like Colorado, for example, and you're carrying, and say you're carrying your Glock 17 and you get pulled over, you're still breaking the law.
Yeah, technically you got that stendo on you.
Yeah, at that point, yeah, you're carrying something totally wrong.
So what Tristan's talking about is the, you have to follow the state laws that you're in.
Correct.
So like Colorado has a, magazine capacity 15 rounds. Some states are as low as 10. So what that means is, if you got pulled over with that, in whatever reason searched or whatever, and they found that on you, yeah, you're now subject under, Colorado law, for that firearms law. And it's not just, hey, I'm going to dump, a couple rounds out of my mag.
It's what it can hold.
Yeah, you need to have a, I guess, state or restricted magazine, whatever that is. So, so it's smart if you're going to travel with your firearm, which many of us do, just to,
brush up.
Yeah, there's some great resources out there too. USCCA has them. There's USConcealedcarry.com has the map that we're looking at now. So, which is I guess USCCA, but
yeah.
Yeah, so there's plenty of resources out there. I guess not to sound too ad like, but USCCA is a good partner of ours. They're like self-defense insurance, right? So,
Right.
Not only do they have those deals where you pay X amount a month, and it's kind of like having a lawyer on retainer if you were to get in a self-defensive situation, whether it's a shooting, stabbing, whatever. But they have a lot of great resources like training and these concealed carry tools. So they have it on an app to where you could just pull up your app and see like, hey, what are the laws here for whatever state you're in? So you can kind of on the fly as you're going see, what the do's and don'ts are. Uh, you know, so it's pretty cool. Nice little plug for USCCA, but
I love having a CCA. Like it's really like
it is cool, yeah.
Like at some point, like it's great to know you have a firearm, but what people probably aren't really thinking on is like, I have this for self protection and I'm good to go. But there's always a repercussion for every action we do and we commit. So even though it could be 100% justified, there's still going to be legal action not only in criminal court but civil court as well.
Yeah, what happens after you pull the trigger? That's pretty much it.
And that's where USCCA comes in to help walk you through it.
For sure. I mean, the first call should be
911,
and the second call should be the little number on the back of your membership card,
right?
And then after that, you don't say anything. So I believe the fifth. They again, they have lawyers kind of on retainer. There's no extra out of pocket, things like that. So it's smart. It's definitely worth looking into. We have USCCA qualified instructors, so there's some cool classes there. I think we got one coming up where it's like CQC home defense. So it's like, what the hell happens, when you hear a bump in the night, and
I'm grabbing my 22.
I'm here to bump back. Yeah. So it's just cool stuff like that, where it's definitely family oriented training. And it's really cool. So I guess getting back to that, there's plenty of resources. What's the other reason to keep or to pursue, at least in Texas, your LTC?
So as a college student, for me, like at a time, like that's constitutional carry is not allowed, but concealed carry with LTC was a different story. And it's a little bit nerve wracking. I know parents probably feel that today, sending their kids to school, at times just because the world gets wild. So just knowing that you have just that one extra addition place where you can feel safe, and you're not totally relying on somebody else for your security. That's an interesting spot.
Yeah,
what are you looking at? What do you think?
I'm not trying to steer your ship here. Yeah,
no. The sail's going in the same direction, bud.
So the other big thing is 4473s.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying.
The two big perks, that I've always said, either getting now or maintaining that LTC. Reciprocity is probably the number one. You want to be able to travel across straight lines and not have to worry about your gun. The second part is in Texas, this is the way, and I know that it's the same way in a lot of other states too.
This is the way.
This is the way. So if you have your license to carry or concealed carry permit, whatever they call it, when you purchase a new firearm, you can actually forego that background check. It's not really a big deal. It's not a loophole in any way. It's just, that state has recognized that, hey, you've already gone through so much of a background check as it is. You still have to fill out all the paperwork. You still have to fill out the 4473, which is what we use to submit to NICS, which is your kind of federal background check. That just doesn't get submitted. Everything gets kind of held on to.
Do you remember the start of the pandemic?
Oh yeah,
It'd be like me and downstairs. So
still have flashes. Are you talking about like when everyone was starting to watch Tiger King, or
a little bit before that? Okay. So Tiger King still wasn't cool yet.
Yeah.
I think it was almost there. But I can recall just the sales floor. There's so many customers. Everybody freaking out. The world was going to end. This was it. The apocalypse is here. And here
anything
we go.
with the trigger, I'll take.
Yeah, it was getting pretty wild, but people started getting backed up, right? So the background system that we have, and then everybody else you couldn't process fast enough to get an answer.
Which that goes through your local state, I guess your state's FBI, pretty much.
Yeah. And so they'd just be like, delay. And people are like, what's going on? It's like, remember all those gun reform laws that you wanted? Yeah, they're working.
Yeah.
This is what it takes right now. This is what happens. But the people who came in with the LTC is like, yeah, I think I just want one more gun. And say, cool, we'll run your background. Like, no, I have an LTC. Like, oh, here's paperwork. And it's a very fast process.
I mean, without the crazy circumstances, like just any normal time, it probably does save 10, 15 minutes. I mean, it's not a huge thing. It's not, you know, I don't know. It's like kind of like a TSA pre-check. Like you still have to go through security, but yeah, it's a little quicker, right?
100%.
But yeah, that's a great example because who knows what things get delayed for. It could be a bandwidth issue with FBI. It could be there's multiple people with your name.
There's just the third dude just had a bad pass.
Yeah.
It was close enough, and it's like, so you're going to get delayed.
There's crazy stuff where, my father gets delayed all the time, and it's like he doesn't have anybody else on his name, like in his name, no criminal record or anything like that, just for whatever reason. And it's just one of those things. It's kind of like a coin toss. So, there's tons of reasons why it may get delayed, but that means you're not leaving with that firearm. And while that's probably not a big deal most times, like who knows? Like, what if in a state of emergency like that, like you're still obeying the law, you're still going through the proper steps, but what happens if it all comes down like tomorrow and you didn't get your call like saying, hey, Mr. Smith, you're approved.
I think you said it right. It's like what's the so what behind it? Right. Some people, it could be, they're traveling. Texas is a big state. And you're going out, let's say, I don't know, West Texas, and you totally don't have any of your gear, or maybe your bolt gun broke. Right. So then like, well, crap. Well, I still live in this state. I need to go get a new gun so I can finish out this X thousands of dollar hunt. I want to continue hunting.
Yeah, you're not going to drop 12 hours back to...
I'm about to say from El Paso to Dallas alone is about a 9-hour drive.
Right.
You got another 3 hours till you hit the Louisiana border, right? So you're not driving back and crushing this hunt, missing out on days. Right. So you're like, well, I've already found this much money on it. Let me go run to the store. And you're like, I found one gun. And it says, hey, man, you're delayed.
Right.
It's like, well, now you're just out of luck. Right. And it's few and they are outlier situations, but it's just that nice comfort level to know that I've done the right thing. I'm going to come in, I'm going to do my paperwork. It's still going to be a serial number on there. So this is my gun. I'm responsible for this firearm, but I can be in and out real quick and I can go right back to hunting if I want to.
This gets into some of the more like the libertarian, like get up on the lawn too. It's like, obviously we don't want any restrictions or any of these loopholes or any of these hurdles to have to go through. They're put in place for whatever reasons. Obviously, on that 4473 background check, make sure you're not a felon or make sure you're not under any type of drug use, things like that. And our staff is trained to recognize that too in people. If there's a bar right across the street, so if they come over and they're reeking like Jack Daniels, like we're not going to sell them that firearm.
Say, hey man, hit that Uber button. Right. And, not today.
And then where I was going with this, the delay on that stuff. It's like, well, we don't want people to rush in and buy a gun and do harm. I think that was the whole reason why there was delays. I get it, understanding like, hey, we want to make sure this is the right person and all that. But again, it's one of those things, and I equate it to that TSA pre-check. Like, man, just go get that license. You won't have to worry about all that stuff.
I can remember some Brady dates. I think it was ending up. I feel like it was almost at like a 2-month mark.
That's insane.
At the beginning of the pandemic, and it was literally to the point where we're like, look, man, you can almost just get an LTCA at that point. Like going forward, who knows when this is going to get better. Just go get your LTC done. And then, I think a lot of people started realizing that there were ways to progress in the firearms world and to get more training to not only make yourself more secure with your firearm and a more responsible firearm owner, which is what we all should strive to be. But it, like I said, it was just one of those extra little perks that you could do that.
Man, that whole time too, with the LTCs, the in-person classes, like they would get booked up within minutes of us sending out an email, going live, things like that. Yeah. It got to the point where people would be pissed because it'd be 2 months in advance and be like, "Hey man, it's sold out," or the intro to handgun, things like that classes. Especially with female shooters, those things filled up so fast. We introduced so many classes to try and accommodate. It got to the point where we actually introduced the online LTC, so we do all the classroom stuff online, and then all you have to do is just come here and physically qualify. Where that was starting to get, hundreds of people a week. It was insane, man. Like some of our trainers, all they did was qualify people.
in that for a time period, that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, but say if you really need, like, that's where the majority of the world was starting. And I think that was super cool when we could introduce online LTC, because some people, it was just a different way. Some people learn really great with an instructor sitting right in front of them, you know, going through this, raise your hand whenever you want. Other people are like, that's a 6-hour class. That's kind of a lot. I need to take a breath from this. And so they'll pause it for a little bit and come back.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many things, especially with people working from home now. That means maybe your kids are home from school and it's all, you know, it's chaos at the house, right? It's your routine's messed up. So having that ability to kind of hit, you know, pause and, you know, and start back up, I think that was a big game changer. One of the other questions, and this is kind of, you know, we hit on it early, but come back to it, is the money part. Mm-hmm. So with constitutional carry, you know, states aren't getting as much revenue for LTCs. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we know that really wasn't a driving factor, which is, how many times can you actually say that? But one of the big questions I always get asked is, well, how is this affecting, you know, our revenue, and, you know, what are we doing about kind of thing? So one of the things that I think was probably the biggest black eye on the industry is trainers that came out against constitutional carry.
Yes.
Like, I think that is like the most two-way, like, BS thing, and it's because it was hurting their bottom line. Like, I get it, like, we all need to, you know, make a living and things like that, but, you know, it's like, if I saw that, I would probably never take a class from you ever again, like, because you're not gonna, you know, you're just in it for the money, man. You're not gonna actually, you know, practice what you preach, or, you know, fight for any of those other rights. It's one of those things. It's like, you know, was it good for thee, not for me, kind of deal.
You know, I feel like it was a failure on those individuals' parts that they put their business model where the cream of the crop,
right,
was the top of everything was LTC classes.
It's just that easy button.
That's all it was. Right. And how, I mean, I hate to say that, like, that's laziness.
For sure.
You know, like, that's on them. And if they're not in business anymore, I'm good. And you can take that part out.
No, that's fine. No, that's fine. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we hate to see anybody go business, but I mean, it's just one of those things where unfortunately we did see a lot of, you know, the pandemic hit so much. And it's like, if there weren't ranges or stores, there isn't much margin in guns in the firearms industry. You know, like, how a lot of the stuff's 5 to 10% markup, and, you know, you're talking pennies when you start, you know, you got to pay someone to just, I mean, it's just, that's not a huge moneymaker there. You know, it's, you know, the training and those things, that's where, you know, there's, you know, more chances for higher revenue, things like that. So I can understand where those guys are upset, but it's like, man, where all these individuals or these businesses went out, again, unfortunately, is they just weren't, you know, thinking ahead, or they weren't, I don't know, like, astute enough to just be flexible and change with, you know, the world. And, you know, everything's different. You know, it's,
when you talk about the states taking away the revenue and stuff like that, I think a great byproduct of that, and I don't even think this was the point of the whole thing, where these companies were making the LTCs top priority, now that is minimum base requirements, and it's making training push to the next level.
Sure.
Now, are there personnel or people out there that are doing bad things and they're not training the right stuff? Absolutely. But you have so many qualified instructors that can take you beyond shooting 3, 7, and 15 yards at focused timed intervals, right, and make you a more responsible firearm owner, and understanding what that platform is able to do.
I think what you're hitting on is, it's nothing that ever got brought up in any of those interviews, but, you know, I think it's looked at as the opposite way. So they're like, there's, you know, the state has a sort of, you know, a certain qualification that you have to hit for classroom time and the curriculum that you have to cover, and then, of course, the proficiency part. So, you know, now that that's kind of not needed anymore, but people are still getting training, it's like, okay, are the trainers selling the student short by saying, oh, well, we don't need to learn any of that stuff, so make sure you hit the paper? But I think that's probably a very small sample size to where you're saying, like, I think the training that people are now getting is a little bit more elevated because they're not restricted by kind of, you know, like,
right,
I mean, pointless qualifications and things like that. Like, they're getting more real life, you know, scenario assessment, firearm manipulation. They are being pushed as far as having to be more accurate, because now there's no incentive to just pump out numbers like, well, I qualified 200 people this week, so that equals X amount on my paycheck. Now you're able to maybe charge that student more, but the state's not paying you, so it's like
Right.
it's a little bit better training.
And I would agree to that. I would say that the training is getting better over time. I think it's going to keep going, but I think we've both done it. Stress shoots.
Sure.
Nothing real. You don't see as many holes in your game as whenever you start jacking up your heart rate and then trying to do something with fine motor function. And so just seeing like, hey, these are where my holes are at, and seeing like, oh, okay, because no one I think ever rises to any occasion. Constitutional carry, LTC, it doesn't matter. God forbid a really bad altercation happens and you had to use some kind of deadly force. No one's going to rise to that, but you will fall to your lowest level of training every single time.
Oh, I mean,
and so elevating that training level, I think, is where you have to come in and see that, okay, this is what I did wrong, and start fixing those holes.
We just happened to have a shooting, was it down in Houston, where I think it was 2 police officers were shot and killed, and they had unloaded on this car and didn't even nick the guy. Like, I mean, it's a terrible thing, but it's one of those things. They're in the worst situation that they've ever been faced with.
Yeah.
Adrenaline's going, fear's there, and everything's taking over except the training, because there probably wasn't any. And that's a perfect example of one of those areas that was defunding, police, taking away, training, things like that. So, I mean, it's a really bad outcome.
I'm super empathetic to that, and I really hate to see that. Lots of thoughts and prayers for the family and stuff. That's just, I think New York just had something similar to that.
It's insane.
But you're starting to see the ramifications of some of that without getting too political. Defunding police and things of that nature. But it just goes to show that jobs, especially where your life depends on what you're able to do in the worst case scenarios, those kinds of jobs need the most funding possible.
Sure. I mean, those poor guys and girls, they deal with the worst people, in the world. Like, and I'm not talking about traffic stops or anything like that, like the dumb stuff. Like, they see some real evil, and it's just a disservice to not get them the training, the equipment, whatever needed to do that job. But,
and I think that's training comes in, whether that's your job or if you're just some rando off the street. Sure. Where you have to see that if you're carrying a firearm, and that is what you want to be, and you want to consider yourself a responsible firearms owner, where you're going to be able to protect yourself and the ones you love, that's an everyday, I must evolve into this and become better. There's no off days at that point.
So I guess that kind of like, it brings me back into some of the responses I've been giving is, they're like, oh, well, what are you guys doing now? Like, did you see a revenue loss with, or did you see a decrease in license to carry classes, things like that? And of course, the answer is yes. It probably got cut in half. There's still people obviously looking to get that certification, but there's a bunch that don't need it. Whether they can't afford it, they think they don't need the training because they've been shooting all their life. I mean, whatever the reasons are. There are people that are just, I guess, falling under that new constitutional carry law.
Yeah, for sure.
But the question that always gets asked, like, well, did you guys see, losses, things like that? I'm like, yes, but. So, what we were smart enough to do was create a constitutional carry class. Yeah. And what you're reminding me of is some of the answers that were given is, you're responsible for every round that leaves that gun. Like 100%. Anything that happens with that firearm, if someone steals it, if you use it in a self-defense, I don't believe there's anything, I don't believe there are accidents when it involves firearms. I think it's all negligence. So anything that happens with that firearm, you are responsible for. So, for us, it was a great opportunity to create a constitutional carry class. So, that kind of goes over some of the things that we just kind of briefly skimmed over, but it gives you those missing pieces that, hey, you're going to carry, through the new law. Fantastic. Like, we want to empower you to do so. Yeah, 100%. And our statement's always been Texas gun experience. We support the Constitution and the Texas constitutional carry. That has always been a line I've dropped on everything because we do.
Yeah.
But we also want people to, cover their butts and know the laws. Know when and where you're allowed to carry, and just have the mindset around it. Because again, everything that happens with that firearm, you're responsible for.
I think for me, I like it a little bit more Barney style than that, and it's everything is my fault. When it comes to my firearm and how I carry it, if it's showing in the least way and I don't like it, that's my fault.
Right.
If I shoot a gun and my round doesn't exactly hit my target in the right spot, that's my fault. It's no, the gun didn't malfunction. No, your sights went off. It's like, no, unfortunately, you kind of sucked, and fix it. And that taking that level of 100% ownership of you and that firearm and what happens with that firearm is the only way to operate it. And anything lesser than that it's kind of not, I don't like using the term weak, but it's not the right mentality to have when you're speaking with something that
for sure.
has
I mean, especially with something with such high consequences.
Right, 100%.
So, in your mind,
there's a lot of things up there, so be careful.
And I'm scared to go this way. Now, I think of like the blanket of people carrying under constitutional carry.
Yeah.
Is there a percentage of? Do you have like a description in your mind of like that person, or is there like,
It's an interesting question.
Yeah, is there different levels to that? Because I have an idea, but I want to hear yours first.
I think there is a couple different levels. I would say the not the lowest tier, but the entry level tier of that is those that have a lot of ignorance that poses as arrogance. So you brought it up earlier, the idea that people who, my grandpappy bought me this gun when I was 4 years old, and I've been shooting all my life, and and I hate that.
I've been shooting guns longer than you've been alive.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, man, got it. Those mentalities, I personally can't stand, because there's always a chance to be better. There's always somebody who knows more than you, so you have to focus on doing that. And so that mentality is probably, I would say, a small percentage. It's definitely not the majority of people, but it's just as a starting point. Let's just use that, I guess, is a good term. The next tier in my mind, just kind of shooting from the hip here, is the people who every day may have carried it in their car, but now they might carry it into the grocery store. They're just a little more concerned. Maybe they have a little bit more training, and they know it's life or death, and they're just trying to protect their family. But like you said, maybe they couldn't afford a LTC. It wasn't a super huge price point, but for some people, I mean,
knows, man?
dollars could mean everything. And I totally get it, and I 100%, that's fine.
No, that's why, a complete side note, that's why people dog on High Point and these things like that. It's like, dude, maybe $150, that's a lot. So someone's got to save up a couple months, and if that's what you can get, hell yeah,
go for it.
That's not, I mean, that's the best gun you can get for that. Do it.
Upgrade later. Let's just get started. And so that's just where they kind of got started at. Other people might take a little bit more political view of the government takes enough of my money in taxes, and they're not getting another dime, and that's fine. And I think that's another small majority. Or sorry, not small majority. I would say that's about a small majority. Right. No, probably I would say 15-20%, but still. And I'm not even really concerned with that. The group that concerns me the most is those that have a lot of ignorance that poses as arrogance, and they carry, just unknowing what really carrying a gun means. But like I said, I think that's a small amount of people, and a lot of people do really well is making that small amount look like the overwhelming majority. For sure,
it's always the loudest, and
and that's
whatever.
It's like
I mean, the chances of 1,000 people, the chances of any one of those using their firearm is probably less than, one out of that 1,000. It's really low. There's always outliers as far as, in my mind. I picture the majority, and I think this is kind of the same, in line with what you're thinking of. They go out, they buy, that XD 40, they get the nylon Uncle Mike, nylon Uncle Mike's holster, and they have the shirt that says, 2A or FU and all this stuff.
Mullen Lobby.
Yeah, the Spartan helmets, and they're open carrying, and whatever, or like.
And yes, I'm aware my shirt says "Come and take it."
Yeah. Which, by the way, all of our merch is at TexasGunExperience.com.
And back to the show.
Yes. So, I do think that's going to be kind of an overwhelming majority. Those guys that were not, confident enough to go get the license,
yep,
but overconfident to carry a gun and let everyone know that they're going to carry. That being said, though, I don't think that's the majority non-LTC holders. So I think anybody that has a firearm kind of could fall under the constitutional carry now, right?
Sure.
So I still think that most people aren't going to carry because, do you remember the first time you carried a firearm, like concealed?
It's awkward, man.
It's super crazy, right? It's like you feel like you're under
Everybody
a microscope.
knows.
Everybody knows you're under a microscope. Like every corner you turn, your pine corner, like everything's like it changes your life, right? So that obviously goes away with experience and all
you
that,
take the web gear off and everything else is good. Yeah.
We actually just saw a guy here running dual drop leg holsters.
Of course.
I didn't get a photo of it, but I'll show you that.
Now, does he have an LTC or is he constitutionally carrying?
Well, he goes into that that category I was just talking about. Yeah. Fingerless gloves and all that. But
perfect.
So I think most people aren't going to carry. It's one of those things. Or I think you brought up a great point. It's like maybe this is the it's a foot in the door a bit to maybe expressing their 2A rights and
sure,
kind of flexing that muscle a little bit. Because there's a lot of people, and the pandemic really magnified that are buying guns for protection, but never have any interest in using or picking up that firearm.
Continue.
It's like they're buying an insurance policy.
It reminds me of the people who buy treadmills at New Year's resolutions.
100%.
And then that would sit in the closet, but because I can wear this on my hip, it's there. But it's the same box of ammo that I got in like 2017.
That's the thing. So, a lot of people, they would buy a gun, they were afraid of it, because they just, they weren't around firearms.
Yep.
And it was insane how many like anti-gun people bought guns, and it's cool that they were open enough to come in, and it's kind of like, I told you so, but there was a lot of people that kind of saw the light too, and
yep,
we've had great kind of customers, now members, that have kind of, I don't want to say converted, but they did. But there's people that were scared. They went, panic bought a gun, and that gun's never left its original case.
No.
It's like in their closet somewhere. It's like
blowing the dust off that blue Smith & Wesson box, to bust it back out, get their air weight going.
So it's like, I think that's still going to be the majority. And, I do think that
you think they're carrying? You think that?
I don't think so. I don't think they're going to do anything with it. So
you're saying what you're referring to, the people like from this pandemic basically that have.
Yeah, I think there's still going to be a ton of people that buy guns and say, oh, I have a gun. When's the last time you shot it? Well, I think, Clinton was still in office. Like, what,
Yeah, the chamber flag's still in there from when they originally purchased it.
So, Cosmoline's still
it's soaked in it. And
so I think there's a lot of that. I do think that there's going to be the ones that are kind of the threepers, in your face, and want to give that presentation of being experts. I don't see too many people that are affected by this new law making any real cause or effect, I should say, in firearm shootings. I don't see many like constitutional carry.
The only thing I can really think of, like off the top of my head, that has anything to do with constitutional carry and firearms, was right after Governor Abbott had said something about like, hey, this is going into effect. And I think he announced like 45, 60 days prior, was somebody I had heard, and I don't know how 100% true it is, but got arrested in Dallas for walking outside with his AR-15 battle rattle on, like fully kitted. I was like, no, man, but constitutional carry is like, no, dude.
Call of Duty,
it's not in effect yet. Like, go put your Vanguard costume up and just hang out for a minute.
Yeah.
But outside of that, like everybody was just, like you said, Wild West, and I just don't feel like we've seen it. And I don't know if any constitutional carry
I don't think so. Yeah, I think that was the fear. It's like, oh, now everyone's going to be good Samaritans, and it's going to be the Wild West, and everyone's shooting up everything, because someone sneezed, and man, that's not the case.
So basically, Chicago.
Right. Yeah. Southside. Yeah.
Southside. Yeah.
So I know we kind of beat this with a dead horse, but like the overall, I guess thing I want to convey is like kind of what is it? Why have we been getting asked about it a lot?
Yeah.
And our thoughts on it. For us, it always falls back onto, whether you decide you want to get your license or you want to just do the constitutional carry route. Fantastic, but get training.
And get training from qualified instructors.
For sure, yeah. I mean, not your cousin or whatever that. Again, he's prestige
you
3
found
times.
That one Instagram, sponsored ad, and don't just go to the easiest or the cheapest. Find a instructor and look into them. If they have a background in firearms, I promise you they're going to put it on their website. It'll be in their bio somewhere, or they're going to have a backing from like USCCA, like our guys do.
I would suggest too, like, and everyone's like, well, my brother-in-law is a cop, and he's going to show me something, or my niece is in the Army and she's, she qualified, whatever. That's great. That's not who you get instruction from.
I'm very happy for them, but no.
Yeah, I mean, again, going back to like, just because they were in, the police or in the military doesn't make them a weapon expert. That's not all, but it doesn't make them a weapon expert, and certainly doesn't make them an instructor or trainer. And there is a big difference there. So I think, if you have $100 or, some of these classes can be crazy, but if you have $100, instead of going and buying another generation of the Glock, like go out and actually spend, half of that on some training.
If you've got $1,000 to throw at a gun right now, I would put half of that into a gun. Go get a CZ P10 and then buy $500 worth of ammo and go to a range, or buy $300 worth of ammo. Give $200 to a qualified instructor and go learn something.
Right.
Don't just put all that into it just because you got a Gucci gun that you can throw up on TikTok or Instagram and be like, "Yeah, I'm ready to roll." Yeah. No, man. Like let's make sure we're doing this appropriate and right, because that gun's going to do absolutely no good. That gun will still outrun you before you'll ever.
100%. Yeah, I think that's. I mean, with all of us, and I mean. I know, especially, since doing all the videos and stuff like that, dude, like, got a lot of rounds downrange and things like that. And, man, I will never say, like, nope, can't learn anything. Or, there's, can't learn shooting mechanics enough, or, tactics. Or
what is dry fire going to do for me anyways?
Yeah, right, yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like, God, I mean, I still mess up on that stuff. Like, obviously, we don't show it, but... and I've had thousands of reloads, whether it's...
I've seen the bloopers, man. It's okay.
Yeah. It's actually got a stunt guy that comes in. Yeah. So,
same beard and all. It's pretty wild.
It's deep fakes are pretty good nowadays. Yeah. But I mean, instead of investing in the gun, invest in yourself, right? I mean, invest in your training. That was the other thing too. I've brought up a lot is medical, and
absolutely.
You're more.
I believe you're more likely to use a tourniquet than you ever already use your gun.
Yeah, I think I said that on that newsy thing. I'm like, dude, you're definitely more likely to need some type of medical first aid, whether it's trauma or just basic, care, than you ever need that firearm.
Yep.
And if you carry a firearm, those chances are just, exponentially.
Yeah. If those holes are in your game, you're going to see it a lot more now.
For sure, yeah, and that's the last. Whether it's pulling a firearm out or pulling out a med kit, that's when you don't want to find out, like, oh, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Like,
yeah, no, I'm not talking about, having the blowout kit attached to your hip at all times. I mean, it's just a few items can drastically increase someone's survivability. And like, let's bring up last February real quick. And then, this ice storm, we're about to get another smaller version of that later this week. But last year, I think it was like 6 or 7 people died, but it was like 100-something car pileup.
Oh,
and you couldn't tell me they couldn't use a tourniquet during that situation when a semi's plowing through. Yeah. It was just a really bad ordeal. But those times and circumstances when we think life is going to be normal, it just goes drastically sideways.
Just dumb stuff, man. Like, how do you, if you show up, whether it's a car accident's a great example, because, I mean, the chances of that are so high,
right?
Especially if you live in an area like DFW here. car accident, or what happens if like a dog bite, or like the dumbest thing. There was
that cobra comes out in Grand Prairie and
right.
gets you, man.
Oh, there was a guy hunting, shot and killed a hog, but before it went down, it
grabbed him.
It got his leg, and guess what? Severed his femoral artery. So he bled out and died. So I mean, stuff like that. It's like, and there's like no one's shooting at you. It's however many whatever. Yeah, right.
Hogs are crazy,
them things. You don't want to mess with, but
no, for sure.
It's a great example of a simple tourniquet would save that dude's life.
30 bucks. Go get yourself a Ratchet Medical tournament.
Right. And it's not the movies. You're not going to rip off your T-shirt or use your belt.
You're going to find that one stick in the middle of a field. You're gonna make a cravat or whatever.
Yeah, and there's so many tests out there too, like improvised tourniquets.
Your belt, not to go down the rabbit hole. Your belt does not work.
Yeah, it's not going to work. Yeah, so just dumb stuff. I mean, find a medical class.
99% of circumstances before we get hit in the comments. It's not going to hurt. 99% of the time, it won't work.
Stop the bleed class, or a TCCC, or any of these things are invaluable. So yeah, if you have $200, spend $100 and learn how to actually use your gun. Spend the other $100 and figure out how to save someone's life. It could be your own. So
do it.
I think we've beat that up pretty good, but
I'm down. Let's move on, man.
So what do you want to get into? Do you want to do the versus thing, or do you want to get into like the personal gear you want to talk about?
Ooh, all right. Let's go with versus, man. Let's get that knocked out.
So, we want every week, we want to kind of just have, fun. So, we being, in the firearms industry and have access to a ton of stuff, and, whether it's product or news or information, whatever, we thought it'd be kind of fun to every week just have a little different scenario. This one's going to be kind of super vanilla this week, but, it could be anything from, what's your loadout for a zombie apocalypse or whatever, but, we kind of went back and forth and kept adding parameters to it, but we're like, okay, so let's kind of keep it simple for this first one. Let's choose, what do you think is the best EDC, and talking about a firearm.
Yep.
And at first it was kind of like, hey, what's like the best micro compact?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, that's kind of subjective because,
how micro are we talking?
Right.
You got Tony Robbins' hands, that Desert Eagle is probably a pretty good micro.
Yeah, I'm carry a Staccato XC, man.
Yeah, exactly.
21 rounds on me. So we kind of limited it. We're like, okay, so under $1,000 EDC, right? So I think we kind of both brought like two options.
Yeah,
I'm already telling you, I got the better one.
I think you do. I think so. When you texted me earlier, you were like, just so you know, I'm gonna win this. I'm like, dude, I've been thinking all weekend about something practical. I'm like, how did you define best? Because anytime you throw an adjective in there,
sure,
everything kind of goes completely sideways for different people. So what were the parameters that you used to define best?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm a super gun snob. I
never would have thought of that.
Yeah, right. I roll my eyes when someone says, "Oh, Glock, whatever." Like, Glocks are phenomenal. They're great guns. But so is the Honda Civic.
I wonder what guns Tristan brought.
But, it's like they're going to run you every time. Everyone's going to be able to shoot it. They're affordable. There's parts infinitely, out there to replace with. Super customizable, things like that.
Okay.
Super boring to me. But, so it's like, oh, what do you like? Like, I know, I've always liked CZs, some of the 75s. And I thought about that too, like, it's like a 75 compact, aluminum frame, things like that. And then, for me, I carry a 2011 for the most part, but that's where it's like, all right, well, this conversation isn't for the pores.
Yeah.
And
that is not the gun for this week.
It's not the gun that's for this week. So, keeping it sub 1,000, because that's going to be within most people's budgets. And it allows some variance too. So maybe you want to add some accessories, things to it. So I think we each brought two guns.
What did you add, Brian?
I'm going to give you my real answer first.
Okay, that's fine.
And then I'm going to give you my kind of FU answer second.
All right, let's see what he's got.
Reaching down into my bag of tricks here, I have, let me find it, stand by.
Suspense continues to build.
So many guns in this bag.
Oh, wow. Trying to get it past all the high points.
Just for all the people on the socials and the whatever, yeah, we're not going to flag each other, blah, 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 guns unloaded and all that
Yep.
stuff. So
we did check before the episode started.
funny enough is a CZ P10. I heard you say it earlier. These guns can be had, for, it's like 4 to 5.
Yeah, easy.
This is very comparable to the Glock 19.
Yep.
Very similar footprint. In fact, this fits in my Glock holsters.
Okay.
Adjustable back strap, so you can, and they come with different back straps too. So whether you have small, medium, large hands, you can adjust kind of that palm swell there. Out of the box, much better trigger than a lot of the striker fighters out there. And in fact, this one, again, keeping the cost low, and I kind of priced everything out here. This has the HB Industries Theta trigger shoe on it. So those trigger shoes are like $65, $70, something like that.
That's not bad.
And it doesn't change the pull weight, but it changes the leverage on it, and it's flat facing. So, it provides a really nice, good, crisp trigger feel on it. Yeah, absolutely. And it also is striker fired, so similar to the Glock. So, why striker fire is nice, and I'm sure you probably brought something out of striker fire as well.
What? No.
Striker fire is the same trigger pull every single time.
That is
so
nice.
like hammer, you have double action, single action.
Yeah.
Where single action is much lighter. Some half or sometimes even a third of the weight is what double action is.
Mm-hmm.
There's also no exposed hammers or anything like that. The other part of strikers is they kind of have a built-in little safety to them. So a lot of them have a safety on the trigger shoe itself. So a little lever that has to be pressed in before it even allows you to pull the trigger. And then the way the strikers work is as you're pulling the trigger, it's actually pulling the spring kind of backwards, charging your striker, your firing pin, really.
Sure.
So that gun's really not going to go off unless that trigger's pulled. Glock was kind of the ones to really market that as that safe action pistols and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So I have the CZ P10C, has a little trigger shoe on it. Say that's $500.
Yeah.
There is the Holosun 507C.
Yep.
I like Holosuns. I've had half a dozen of them or more.
If you heard last week's episode, we really like Holosuns.
Every one of them's been dependable for me. They're feature heavy. The only downside of this gun, it did not come with a plate. So I had to order that plate from like CZ Customs.
And that's what put you over the line. I'm just kidding.
No. So what is the optic? So I don't know, $200?
I would say it's probably about 2.5 right now. So you're about $750.
$750. And then I was like, well, I pulled it out of the safe and I have this Enforce light on it. So I'm not a huge fan of it. I think there's pretty low lumen.
Low lumen. What do you think of those touch pads?
So I think the light looks good. And
it's very aesthetically
the profile
nice.
of the gun, it's very slick, right?
Yeah.
Low output, but the controls are the worst part. So as you're firing, there's recoil that comes up, right, on the gun. So they come up and back a little bit. But the way these pads are, if your thumb's there as you're depressing it, it's going to make you push the button every time recoil comes up. So it's kind of a bad spot, So if it's like a designer created it, but not a shooter.
Sure.
So because it's not really that great if you take any real night classes or use it in theory.
For its intended purpose.
I think aesthetically they're great. The light output's plenty fine. It is a pretty nice white light. It's not huge lumens or anything like that, but it is compact. It takes a CR123. I haven't had any type of vampire or battery drain on that, so
nice.
Not too worried about that. But I do think there are more powerful light options.
Yeah, you do have upgraded irons.
Good observation. So I guess getting back to like the
trying to sneak it in
and pricing on this. So the lights are what, $100?
Yeah. So we're
if you're going to keep in that same ballpark, you could put a TLR
7. Is it 7 or 9?
Say like an HL1 or whatever. Like
so your HL1's gonna be like 130-ish. Is about where it hit.
And that's why I didn't put I was gonna grab a Surefire and put it on here, but I'm like, man, that will put me right
at it,
right at that $1,000 mark. So
for those of you coming at home, we're at $850.
Yes, so we're at $850, and then the irons are actually just suppressor height sights. That way they can co-witness the dot from Night Vision, and those are $100. So
who are they from?
Night Vision. with an F. So
Okay.
the front is actually the only one it's tritium. The rears are just blacked out.
Yeah.
But that's where we're at.
Okay. All right. So
So-
950.
Yeah, I mean, even without all of the jazz on here, I think CZP10 is a phenomenal handgun.
So I was over at the shop talking earlier this morning, and I was like, I was like, this podcast, I was like, what do we have? Just kind of looking around, and that was one of the first things I asked. I was like, what about a P10C optics cut? And I was just kind of looking to see if we even had anything just as we were talking through it. And, I feel like CZ, but prior to coming into the firearms industry, I still am a Glock guy, and I do have a Glock today. But CZ, for the price point, they're honestly hard to beat.
Right.
They are great shooting guns. I think one thing that strayed me away from them is the reasons you hate Glock. I like having all the aftermarket, everything that I could ever want. So no, that's a really cool gun. I think that was a good first choice.
Is as much as I hate on them, I do have a handful of Glocks. And again, I respect the brand, but it's one of those things like,
Yeah, put some respect on its name.
yeah, if I'm going to get ice cream, it's not going to be vanilla bean.
Oh.
Even if you put sprinkles
I don't know,
on
dude.
it.
Bluebell makes a quality vanilla bean ice cream.
You could put spinner wheels on your Honda Civic all you want.
Hoopty on it. Yeah, spinners on hoopty.
And I laugh when you say like the hipster stuff. And I don't know if like when CZ really got super popular, and maybe it was around when the P10 came out.
Yeah.
And this is going to be like the most hipster thing you'll hear me say in the next 2 minutes. But
You can keep raising the bar. So I don't know.
Yeah, I've been a CZ fan way before they were cool.
Oh yeah.
So
that was top of the episode, and that's it, everybody. No, I'm
yeah.
just kidding.
So I mean, one of my I don't know, probably 15 years ago, I had a 75 series handgun. Had a couple of them. I think now I probably have. I don't know your name all. I have like 5 CZs now. So I really like the brand. I think they are still kind of underrepresented. They just don't have any marketing here. Glock. Everybody has Glock. You see Glock stickers on everyone's car,
Right.
Or their shirts. Glock Perfection.
Sure, I get it.
And we all like ourselves, but I think CZ is just kind of undermarketed. But they do a lot of things where anybody that's ever picked up one or shot one, they really like it. So
Yeah.
I think that's a solid choice.
Okay. Sorry. You want to bring out your second choice? Or you want me to?
No, I want you to go. Yeah.
Okay. So I took it a little bit more basic than that for both my guns. When you say the term best, what I go for is traveling. So like we talked about with LTCs, things like that. I like to travel when I can, and I'm always fearful that something's going to happen. So I always like to have some kind of contingency in place. So being able to walk into basically any gun store and be like, yep, I can do this. I can grab this, this, and this.
Mag availability,
all that,
holsters, all that stuff. Right?
recoil spring, holsters, lights. I'm feel pretty comfortable with all that. But for me, so not like a bigger dude by any stretch of the imagination. So I like to have a gun that's extremely compact and can fit the most rounds that I can into it.
That was one thing I didn't really mention, like any of the criteria for me. I think round or capacity is the biggest thing for me.
Yeah.
Not so much concealability, but capacity for sure.
Gotcha. So concealability, it's just a change of clothes, right? And a change of different things. And as you grow in that, you've carried conceal for a while. You're like, okay, this works, this doesn't. I'm not wearing muscle shirts. I'm not wearing the afflictions like you do, and I can't do that. But so my first gun that I brought was a 43X.
Okay.
Reason being is that's clear, but you can take a peek in it if you would like. It has night sights on it, so which was nice considering this was prior to the MOS. I want to say dropping.
These are the Glock night sights.
Correct. So it came on the gun. I want to say that's going to come in just about 5.5, like that. There now, there's no upgraded trigger in there, anything like that. Glock is perfect, so Glock did it right. So. No, in kind of all honesty, it's a newer kind of project for me on this one. The gun itself, it's fun. It's a good shooter, but the big thing I think I did to this was putting the Shield Arms mag release and changing the mags out. So instead of being the 10-round mags, it's now 15 rounds, which
Game changer.
For me, truly it was. Yeah. It's a smaller version of a 19X at this point, right? Or I'm sorry, a little bit smaller because the barrel length's going to be shorter than that. So
pretty much now you have a gun that's either an inch or less in width, completely concealable, even in a pocket. But you have, Glock 19, kind of mid-size
mag. So I mean, 15 rounds
capacity,
is and they're not hard to get, and they're not that expensive. So get a couple mags for that. Really, you can get this gun here for under 6.5. And like we talked about earlier, though, like I put that money right back into more bullets and training, and that's for a first. I guess that's what I took with this one.
So $350 will get you like
I can get
2 boxes of ammo and
or 1 box of JHP if that's what you're really looking for. No, it gets you a little bit, not a lot of it, but down the road if you want to take that and you want to upgrade, so you can get a TLR6, which I have a 48 kind of fully set up, ready to rock and roll. TLR7 it's on the MOS, and then you get threaded barrel. Like you can get really involved. Basically a Glock, just like the 365s and the 320s, and almost anything from Glock, especially the 9mm series though, is an adult Lego. Once you start it, most people, they start tinkering and messing with it, and then it just becomes this addiction, and they can't stop. So nothing, it feels like for most people, once they buy a Glock, everything changes, and it's hard the only thing that says Glock on it anymore is the frame. Right? Yeah. So, and that's what happens to most people, and I'm just not one of those kinds of people. I like to tinker and stuff, but I also like to shoot straight out of the box. And so that's for your first handgun, and then you just get a holster, just standard little holster here, and it's ready to go. You're ready to get started, and it's not hard to get down the road for well under 1,000.
So when you carry, do you carry, I guess, how do you carry? Do you carry concealed? Do you carry out? I guess.
Dependent. If I'm wearing a tucked-in shirt, I'm not going to make it more uncomfortable by putting a gun in there as well, too. But like I'll wear like a blazer or something over the top. I'll carry on the outside, but majority of the time I will carry inside the waistband, about 230. I know a lot of guys like to carry appendix. I have a little bit too much gut to be carrying an appendix right now. It's just not where I'm at. But about 230 I think is about perfect for me. Just with a slight cant on the gun, I'm ready to roll. What about you?
I guess to answer that, one of the other questions, and I will answer that, but as you've carried more and more, do you find yourself going to smaller guns or bigger guns?
Very dependent on what I'm doing.
Depending on if you had Chipotle for lunch or not.
Yeah, right. No, there's a morning gun and an afternoon gun. I believe that anybody that carries a concealed firearm, if I need to, I can still carry a Glock 17 or a 34. Like I'm not concerned about that. I like to just go based off of what I'm doing, and I carry different things for slightly different purposes. What's your favorite rifle, right? And then you're like, well, in what circumstance? Because sometimes I like my Galil, but my other days I'm liking my Falcor.
Right.
It's kind of those things. So it's just dependent.
It's mission specific.
Sure, and I would say probably my true EDC right now is a 48 or a 43X, just because it does what I need it to do. But I can switch over to a 17 or a 34 or a 320 just fine. Now,
do you carry an extra magazine at all?
Oh yeah, Neomag.
Neomags, yeah. So Neomag's a little magnetic clip that goes in your pocket and all that.
Right, yeah, and it hooks that mag on, and it sits there, it doesn't move. If you first time I ever tried to carry an extra mag, I just put it in my pocket, and halfway through the day, it like turned itself completely sideways, stretched out my pocket, and was like freaking ridiculously hard to like get out. And I'm like, yeah, this isn't gonna work.
Dude, we can't even keep the Neomag sack. So we keep the Neomag and then what I think it's called the Sentry Strap.
Yeah, Sentry Strap.
So it's like the sling carrier for your rifle. Yeah, we can't keep those in stock. It's a good product.
Absolutely.
So when I first started off, I carried, strong side, kind of like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, inside the waistband. And then I had like the crossbreed holster. So it's like a Kydex outer with
the leather interior.
Oh yeah, leather, like horsehide or whatever interior. So they were comfortable. I don't think it was the best for concealment or anything like that because the grip will always stick out, if you bend over or rotate or anything like that. I'm not a real big guy either, but I don't know what switched in my brain, but like one day I was like, I need to carry appendix, and this was like before it got super crazy, like popular. I
thought we were done with the hipster statements, man.
I said 2 minutes.
Okay.
This was like at the beginning, I think, of like everybody on Instagram running, sub-second draws, from their appendix and all that. It just started making sense for me, like not just draw, but like, it's in a protected area, so like you can fight somebody off of the front of you, it's a lot harder to fight someone off your side or your back.
Sure.
So if they're going for your gun, it's also very concealable. So I found myself going to larger guns the more I carried. So probably one of the smallest guns I've ever carried is a Glock 48.
Basically a mini 19. A skinny 19.
A slim 19. Yeah. So it's still decent size. Slide and barrel length and grip, but just thin. The P10C, I've carried that a lot, but so, I find myself carrying 4.25, 4.5 inch barrels, 2011s, with a Surefire X300. So, I mean, the light sticks out further than the barrel, and that's like a full size gun at that point. And mostly because I carry appendix and I like to compensate, and
it's okay to be wrong.
Ladies.
I'm just kidding.
No, and usually have a mag carrier there as well. So. Some call them like sidecars or whatever. So you pretty much have the gun and the magazine like right in front of you. So I found anytime that I've deterred from that and like am gone to like back to a strong side, I hate it, man. Like,
sure.
Especially like I think it's when I sit down or when I get in the car, it's like, all right, man, the seatbelt's in the way or like whatever, it's bumping into the chair. That's
like the main time I could see appendix having a strong case for it. Is because being a right-handed guy, right-handed shooter, I have a seatbelt in the way, right? It's not like my left-hand side that has all this open space, but that's all going to get clustered right there. And but that's a few and far between time for me right now, where I would think that would be the most likely chance where I would have to get into a shootout of any kind. God forbid it, right?
So. All right. Do you want to go with your next one, or you want me to go? I might be a minute.
I mean, is it at least in your bag, or is
it's in my bag?
Okay, so it is an EDC gun.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been talking so much crap. I had to know, so I could be like, all right, guys, that concludes the segment.
It's in my backpack.
Okay, so would this be considered a off-body carry?
I don't know. So EDC stands for everyday carry, right? So
that's very
opens up for interpretation.
Sure.
I don't think there's anybody. In fact, I do know that there is one person that makes holsters for this.
Oh, man.
I don't know if it is something that a holster would be appropriate for.
I feel like I have an idea what you have in your bag.
It's kind of a meme gun, but it still follows under our criteria.
Okay, so we've talked about too much. Just go ahead and bring it up, man.
So my entry into this sub $1,000 EDC is going to be...
Oh my gosh.
my Kel-Tec Cp33. Now, for those just listening, this is not your average CP33.
What is the CP33 to begin with?
And that's a great place to start. So Kel-Tec is pretty much one of the top tier manufacturers in the world. So Kel-Tec is a manufacturer in Florida, and they're one of those ones that kind of good initiative, maybe bad judgment, whatever, but they have really cool designs, whether it's bullpup rifles or, they're the ones that came out with that PMR 30, which is a 30 round 22 Magnum. So stuff, they make things that a lot of other companies just don't think is necessary to do, or just kind of push the envelope. So I think they have a really cool design team. Like, they do some fun stuff that kind of bucks industry trends.
Sure.
Where they kind of catch a bad rep is, some of the QC stuff, or not everything is, it's definitely not, your Daniel Fences or, Staccato or whatever. It's not, looked at as kind of an upper echelon manufacturer. But to their credit, they really do make some cool stuff. Recently they just dropped that new 5.7, the P50. They just dropped another 5.7 handgun, so I think they're really doing a good job there. Their bullpup rifles. They have the KSG shotguns, which are popular. For as much crap as we want to talk and people give Kel-Tec, their guns just don't last. Like, anytime we get stuff, granted, they are not the fastest to come in, but whenever we get them, they go immediately.
Right.
So this was kind of a little project just to have fun, and I don't know. I'm sure there's others that people have done it little differently or very similar, but the kind of the poor man's MP7. Since HK, the civilians don't deserve HK. What's the next best thing? So
It's funny you say that.
yeah, so this is kind of a PDW, so personal defense weapon. However, I say it's kind of a meme gun because 22 long rifle, which is the only thing that this is chambered in. It's a lot of fun. It's a plinking round. Probably more people have been killed by 22 than anything else.
I know. I believe that's like South Africa. Like that is the hardest cartridge to get.
So
that's so many people assassinated with it.
Yeah.
No.
Well, I mean, so it makes sense too. Like this has a big suppressor on it. So this has a dead air Ghost 45, and the reason why I have that on there is just because
you can.
Well, yeah. I mean, so many of my other pistols, things like that. I have the quick key mode attach on here. You even have a muzzle brake on this thing, so
it's insane.
A little obnoxious, but
okay. Let's.
So
I'll give you the suppressor.
I'll go tip to butt on this, but with pricing and everything. But yeah, 22 long rifle really isn't practical for self-defense. It doesn't have great stopping power or anything like that. But there are some features here where this could be practical for
33 rounds.
The right person.
Yeah.
So yes, and I'll get to that. So the CP33 does stand for it does have 33 rounds. So 22 long rifle. I don't know. This is like a 5-inch barrel on here. It's plenty accurate. I mean, as accurate as a non-match 22 is. Down in our 50-yard bay, even at like 25 yards, which is decent. This is still printing a really tight grouping. I'm talking like 1-2 MOA kind of thing. Like it's pretty tight, and this is just some a GIA 40 grain ammo. So on this thing, the guns themselves are about $500.
Yep.
Triggers on these are actually surprisingly really good. There's nothing to really change on that. So everything that we see on this thing is pretty much just bolt-on function and kind of look. So the front here is a angled foregrip, and believe it or not, it's off of Etsy.
Interesting.
Yeah, Gun Guys shop on Etsy too. So the reason why it's because it's 3D printed. So and to go off of that, there's a lot of 3D printed stuff on this gun that are from Kel-Tec. So the magazine extensions. This is actually a 50-round magazine. So I have 50 rounds in here, right? So that's where it kind of opens up your mind. It's like 33 rounds is a lot, but now we have 50 rounds. I mean, that's a lot of small hate that we can send.
It's a lot of bee stings heading your way.
Stings, yeah. So that's 3D printed. The backside of like the bulk carrier is like a buffer is 3D printed on this thing. So
that's super interesting.
Yeah. So the not a foregrip is what they call it, not a vertical grip. So kind of an angle grip here. It's kind of nice because you can hold it and keep your thumb there away from the muzzle and whatever. I mean, it's 22. It's not like it's gonna get away from you.
I don't know.
The magazine extensions are from Kel-Tec. So those are plus 17. So it gives you a total of 50 rounds, which it's a lot, right? So that's pretty cool. The angle foregrip is like, I don't know, like 20 to 30 bucks. It's been a while. So I would say between that, the magazine extension, so say you get 2 or 3 mag extensions, so we're at 600 bucks. The big thing on this is the brace. And this is the A3 Tactical Strong Arm.
That from Ferrotec?
From Ferrotec, yep. So it has the twin carbon fiber kind of arms here. So similar to MP7s, things like that, it is literally just a straight pullback and kind of locks into place. So when you're not shouldering it, so when you have the firearm up, it actually, provides a pretty good little plant there. It's not anything that you have to really pull into your shoulder real hard. The use as a brace, it does come with a strap as well. So if you wanted to strap it around your arm, you can. But it does kind of put it at a decent enough length of pull, distance to where it feels like a good kind of PDW, small subgun. So these are,
I want to say they're about $3.
Yeah, they're a little pricey. So I think it's because you get all that carpet fiber on there. So that carbon fiber isn't cheap, and just the design. So
you're at 3, so that's 9.
So I want to. No, I don't think they're $300. I want to say
no, I say it's $295,
right,
bro.
So, and then the optic itself is, so on here I just had lying around a Vortex Spark AR. So it is the AR height. Takes either a double or triple A battery, just a red dot. Yep. And honestly, that AR height is perfect if you are shouldering this. So the suppressor would obviously put it well over the budget because those are $700. But
go ahead.
We can take it off.
No, so even with suppressor, I think you're either busting it because of the sight and the muzzle device. But I will say, like, as an EDC gun, we'll call it close to $1,000.
Sure. I just was in the safe. And I was like, dude, I have to.
Tristan has nothing for this. Yeah. Just kind of looking at it overall, I think for most people, you could pop the sight off. It already comes with iron sights on it.
Yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, they're fully adjustable.
Looks like just standard fiber.
Yeah, fiber optic sights.
Orange over green. Mm-hmm. But, take the optic off, whatever. It's a cool way to get people thinking outside the box of, I'm stuck with my Glocks, I'm stuck with my CZs, my SIGs, and that's not always the case, right? If you want to do an off-body carry in a backpack or something like that, it's doable, but that's something now you have to train. It's a little bit different. You may not find the same resources that you're going to find for what most people standardly do, but it's a cool option. And yeah, you're right. I have nothing to beat that.
So one of the things I like my mission in life is, so like one of the older women in our office up here is like, I don't want to say anti-gun, but I
hope she listens to this episode.
I know she's not old, but
No, you said older. So.
Older than I guess.
There you go.
She's new into firearms. Doesn't really it's just not her thing, right? But I could bring something out like this and say, hey, look at this weird looking space gun. It's super quiet. It's super soft. You want to shoot it. And for someone that's like, I don't want to shoot. I don't want to do anything. For them to be like, hey, I think I might have found my new gun kind of thing. Or like, oh, I get what you're talking about, like, with gun lust and stuff like that. Like, so I thought that was a really cool, I don't know, like way to introduce someone. And, I think that kind of gives this a gold star.
Yeah, no, you definitely got a gold star for today on that one. And I think that's cool. It's not that the industry, I think just what we're trying to do here makes it just a little bit different for some people, is that, guns aren't supposed to be something that are held for the select few, and there's no gatekeepers on this culture, and getting understanding, no, this is for everybody. The Second Amendment is for everyone. Everyone that can legally own a firearm, should be a part of it. And we'd love to see that. So it's cool to have, firearms that may look a little funky to some people, but that could be the introduction that changes someone's opinion. And I think that's pretty neat. So. All right. Well,
now here's your underwhelming coming up last.
So just kind of looking around. This is one that we have on the range, but some HK love.
Oh, not for the pores.
Ooh, you say that, my friend. But you can actually get, so this is the VP9.
Okay.
And you can get into this well below $1,000. It's actually going to hit you about $700. Big thing for me on this, why I ended up liking it so much, is one, because it says HK, so it's easily 1,000 likes on Instagram.
So my first gun was an HK, and my second gun was an HK.
Okay, that explains so much. That is Brian's personality right there. I can see it now. I think it's just a cool piece. I like I think it's European.
I like those. So the magazine, instead of being like a button on the side of the grip, it's like a little paddle underneath the trigger guard. Yeah, I actually really like that.
And I think that it was cool. It's a little intuitive. It's a little bit funky. It's different from what most people see.
Well, so if you don't have the largest of hands, you don't have to break your grip to push the magazine with this. You can just use your trigger finger.
Right.
And that's left or right-handed.
You're right, 100% ambidextrous. I think it's neat. And it makes it a lot of fun. So 15 rounds, so it's still staying about that mid-range. Mm-hmm. But the grip angle, I feel, is a little bit more intuitive than like a Glock or a SIG. That kind of stuff. Now, the bullet button, or not bullet button, but the
striker, the
fire indicator, yeah. Whatever.
Cheesy.
Yeah, a little bit un-American, but it is what it is. Yeah. I don't know, it's just a fun gun. It's a little bit different, and they're starting, if you're looking for an HK and you want to get started in that, you can't find that
better than your the friend group.
Yeah, if you want to be that guy in the friend group, then this is something that's easy to find.
I saw we have been starting to get some of those in the Optics Ready.
Oh,
which
that's
is nice.
cool.
Yeah, so you can now get this, and obviously put some type of dot on it. I do like it's, ambidextrous slide release too.
100%.
So, what's funny is for these, it's actually pretty good for some of those that may have poor hand strength as well.
Yeah.
There are these little, little polymer tabs back here, so it's a little on the back of the slide, so it's a little easier to pull.
It's a place to catch,
for sure, yeah.
when you're racking.
That's the other thing too. Yeah, if it's on a belt or a table or something like that too, you can catch it there because the sights are kind of sloped, so you're not going to be able to rack it off at anything there. The other thing with the slide catch being ambidextrous, for some, they have a hard time pushing down, to release the slide on those levers. So you can actually push down with your thumb and your index finger and send that slide home a lot easier too, if you're not racking the slide. So just a thought on that.
It's just some cool different little features that are easy to kind of add into it.
I think aesthetically it looks cool too. You get all the slide cuts, and you get full length dust guard here too. So if you want to put a light or you want to mount a chainsaw on the bottom of it, you can.
Absolutely.
But
if you can find a chainsaw, let us know. We'd love to see that entry online.
They do make that stupid little bayonet for your handgun. If you've seen those.
No, I haven't seen that.
I don't know. It's like a super tactical.
Right, that'll be your product for next week, right?
Yes. So I mentioned products. So the other thing too, I thought would be cool if we just, because again, there's so much that we could pull from, talk about stuff, and not in a salesy way, just like things that we genuinely think are cool, or that we maybe personally use. So I figure, every week we kind of just bring something that we want to talk about. It could be a gun, it could be, I don't know, whatever, new pair of socks.
Those cool knives. I have some ideas.
Yeah, some cool knives. We got a lot of cool stuff. It'd be a shame to just, hold on to all of that and not share it.
Yeah, so. Sharing is caring.
Yes. So I don't know, if you want to
I'll knock this one
kick it off.
So, walking around the sales floor, I saw this the other day.
Oh, boy.
And I am
Another gun.
This is just me speaking. I haven't always had, the best regard for everything Kimber makes.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not something that I was really into. But
so Kimber, New York manufacturer, they primarily make 1911s. Is it because you're not into 1911s, or because it was Kimber, the brand itself?
So I know I carry Glock, and I like for capacity's sake and stuff, but it has a cult following. Kimber has a cult following too, but I think I was more against the 1911 following more than anything, just because.
To be contrarian.
Oh,
just because you.
Just because I felt like
powers and 2 World Wars and all that.
Yeah, no, 100%. 45 because they don't make 46, right? And 2 World Wars, and then I learned to err in my ways. And I started seeing the importance of some of that nostalgic pieces. I feel like when most people start to enter the market, they want everything that carries the most capacity and those things that we talked about, like the 43X, stuff like that. And it didn't see a point for the 1911 to be around. But if you try the right 1911, and you can see the difference in everything. And that was something that I saw this on the floor. We haven't had Kimbers in here in a while, but now that they've made their way back, saw it and I was like, ooh, let me see this. And I felt it, and you try it out and you're like, okay, this makes sense.
So why do you think, well, let me go back to, so Kimber, they're probably one of the bigger names right now as far as 1911s, and they've done a lot of marketing too. Like they're in every magazine and
every movie.
They're kind of like the Daniel Defense or handguns, but they were hard to get, especially during the whole pandemic hit, because I forget how long they quoted it. It was over a year back order. They were so far behind, just getting guns out and then just getting material in, things like that.
And that was the thing too. I think a lot of people don't understand is that when the pandemic kicked off, I would say about a year into it, Texas had to reopen. So March of last year reopened.
Oh, that's right. All the states were shut down.
All the states were still shut down, and not including the raw materials coming from overseas, taking a lot longer. And then places like New York that weren't allowing many employees back in. So they're, X number of months behind on that. And then they're cutting their staff, 75%. Right. So then you have to work these round-the-clock schedules. And I would give Kimber props to say that they've done the best that they can in that regard, and they've really shown it. As like I said, we have almost a full case of Kimbers now downstairs, and it's pretty cool to
So
see.
it's funny, the one that you're holding, I don't think you've said the name yet, but
I don't even think I've shown it on camera yet, but it's okay.
so I just been jumping in. I remember there was a couple people that had been on the wait list for probably 2 years for this gun. And it was just one of those things, like they announced it, and they're like, yeah, we just started, and then the whole world, collapsed, and it just took forever. So it's just, I'll always remember that gun for this reason.
So, everybody, climactic drum roll here, right?
Yeah.
But it's the Kimber Rapide Scorpius. I'm a big fanboy of everything 9mm. I think it's just really cool technology and everything. Yeah. And it's become the Lord's caliber, especially now. It's just what it can do. But the gun itself, super aesthetically pleasing. If you're just looking at it from like an outsider's perspective, it feels futuristic. It looks futuristic.
So it has like that two-tone, like it looks like they, I don't know, parkerized the whole thing, or the whole thing's like a matte black, and then they machined like the face of like the sides of it. Right. So it's like really high contrast stainless. And then you get the milled out vented slide. Yeah, it has like milled slide. So there's 9 windows on the front of the slide. Lots of serrations on it. So there's big contrast. So all the serrations are black. The barrel's black. So the whole thing is just, the geometric designs. I like it all. And then you get down to the grips, and it feels intuitive in your hand. I've always been more. I think we discussed this between ourselves last week, but you've definitely gotten a lot more of the technical knowledge, and I feel like we both have a lot of applicable knowledge. But I like to just say it just looks freaking cool. Oh, sure, it looks super fun. It looks like a great gun to shoot. It's super light, easy to pull trigger. If you've only ever shot polymer guns and you pick up like your first 1911 or 2011. Feeling the difference in the trigger weight and what a trigger should feel like, it's very noticeable. So it kind of comes with that Kimber classic feel to it. Right. That's one of the big differences with 1911s or 2011s. That's why 2011s are so popular as far as like competition guns. They're known, just the design itself. It is single action only, meaning the hammer has to be back in order for you to be able to pull the trigger. So there are 1911s, 2011s which a 2011 is just a double stack 1911. They're known to have really good triggers. So that is one of the big draws to them. They are typically heavier guns. Most of them are, like this is not a light gun. No. But they all, metal frames, just everything on it's just a steel gun. They are, it's kind of looked at affectionately though, because most of them were chambered in 45 for the longest time. The guns, well over 100 years old, but it's still a design that works well. But they're just known for having really nice triggers, a little bit more weight, and being very accurate guns. So whether 100%. It's, for the long time the military had them. There's still some different units, operator guys that still choose like a standard 8-round 45 1911. Their competition had them forever, and they've changed over the years, so they're getting definitely more with the time. So there's still very much of a classic appeal to them. Maybe not so much this one, because I don't know if this is like something that the Terminator would carry, or like it's just like, or RoboCop. Like it has a real. I think Terminator 2034. We should see that. Yes. So real futuristic vibe. I'm undecided on if I like it or not. I like the grips. They're like a really. It's like I feel like it's almost like a G10. It's a G10, but man, like crazy design on it. So they have the back strap included is kind of a really cool G10. The front is not the checkering, but it's an actual like into the mold of the frame itself. It's just a good little stipple though, yeah. But Kimber, so that's one of those weird things. So my first 1911, I guess my only 1911 is a Kimber actually. I think they've always made aesthetically pleasing guns. There's a lot of manufacturers out there that make 1911s. I have heard a lot of stuff though, like it's either people love them or hate them, which was, I guess, kind of news to me, because I always thought like Kimber was kind of not the standard, but they were definitely upper echelon. A lot of their guns were, the cheap ones were $800, but most of their guns were $1,000 or more if you wanted a good one. So
Sure.
1,000 to $1,500. They have stuff from the custom shop, but there's, I guess as I developed more of a knowledge in the industry, there was just a lot of people out there hating on the brand,
Right.
Whether it's just QC or different things like that. I don't know if there's any
And
thing you have on that.
No, and I've heard the QC/QA stuff, and I've seen several different ones where the biggest issue was maybe the mag release didn't quite. The slide release didn't quite engage with the magazine seated. It would just kind of lock up. But you switched out the mag to like a Wilson Combat mag, and immediately it went away. When I picked this one up, I didn't notice anything like that. It just felt like whenever I heard the name Kimber and how people discuss Kimbers, that this was it. And this is what they were kind of speaking to. And I think, like you said, Kimber has some really cool custom designs. Probably the first one I saw was like the Texas edition one. And of course, it's Texas, so it has to be good. But overall, I think that if you're looking to get started in Kimbers, in 1911s, then Kimber's a great place.
Oh, that's a great way. I mean, there's tons of brands out there. Springfield, Colts out there if you can find them. I know SIG kind of has their 1911, but it's not the same.
I wouldn't say maybe that is like not the same, but they're different. They have a different look to, like the Spartan edition ones.
Their slides are more like a square cut, where most 1911s are rounded. Their extractor's a little different too, but there's I definitely still think Kimber as one of the higher ones, and I've always had good luck with mine. There are things you can always do better. Like magazines are always kind of a weak point for any gun. Wilson Combat mags are plenty available,
right,
and those are kind of like the standard. I do like the classic look of some of those that are, blued. There's some cool ones that Kimber does that are like, they have a blue frame with a stainless slide and wood grips or whatever. Like, so they have some really kind of cool modern classic combos. I think that are really aesthetically pleasing. That's probably why they're so popular, because they have good looking guns. But
sure,
that's a good choice, man.
Not too bad. Yeah. So what do you got going
on? So I don't know if you want to talk about this, or as I was setting things up. I had two things that kind of popped up. I did bring a piece of gear that I wanted to talk about.
Okay.
But just before we even got started, I saw this P365 Spectre comp on, I think, Instagram. I know in some of the review videos been doing, we've had comped guns like the Staccato XC or the Triarch. And I'm a fan of compensators on guns. I mean, I like to compensate in most of my life. So I think...
I can tell with the beard.
Yes. So what do you think?
Man.
Is it all show, no go?
No, and I think that there's something really to be said about the 365 series. I'm curious on how this feels shooting. Talking to new shooters and everything, whenever you think of handguns, the biggest thing I hated hearing was, I'm looking for a small handgun. I'm like, cool, is this your first gun? Are you going up a few now? It's like, nope. And I'm like, have you ever shot before? They said, no, but I just want a gun that's not going to kick a lot of,
right.
And so understanding that the small gun isn't the answer for that. I'm very curious to see how the felt recoil is with a compensated 365, because I'm sure it'll probably knock it down a little bit.
Sure.
And I think now, of course, price point will also dictate first-time shooters wanting to pick this up. But I think it's a super cool look. I've always loved SIG's work.
Yeah, I mean, I get black and gold's a good combination. So again, we're looking at that P365 XL Spectre comp is what they're calling it. So just a P365 XL, so full-size grip, I guess full-size in quotes, and then the longer slide. It has a cutout for the optic. It has two little cutouts on the front of the slide. I don't know if there's anything on the top or not. It looks like there might be some cutouts on the top of the slide. And then it has a two-chambered comp on the front. It also has their Spectre stippling on the grip itself.
Yep.
And then, of course, most noticeably is that really high polished gold barrel and gold trigger shoe that's a flat face.
I think it's. Have you seen just the standard Spectres before?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think?
Oh, like it's like that stone wash, right?
Yeah, it's kind of futuristic looking a little bit.
Yeah, you can lose me on the stone wash thing. I aesthetically like the lines of this gun. The gold thing I could leave. I don't know, like.
That's what rattle cans are for.
Yeah. It's a little too flashy for me. That said, though, I love the integrated compensator.
I love that you say it's too flashy for you from the guy who just admitted to carrying 2011. So
yes, well, yeah, I mean,
all over the place here, man.
Anytime I see like gold or anodized colors or things like that, like that to me always belong on like a competition thing, like where they want to be flashy and things like that.
Yeah,
it doesn't, to me, doesn't scream like, hey, let's go to work. Like,
you know, if you're thinking I give you that for your everyday carry. Which, side note, real quick, this popped in my head. Do you think ever in competition shooting, there's now going to be a section called micro compacts?
That'd be dope if there is. I mean, there is like carry optics and things like that, to where they have you draw from a concealed carry position or carry guns. So it'd be kind of neat. I mean, God, these things are so popular nowadays, and everybody's in the small arms race to get these micro compacts with high capacity. So
3-inch barrels with 20 rounds. That's what people are looking to do. Anyway, sorry, I was really curious about that. I'll have to think on that.
Yeah, so I mean,
find one of those. But I agree with you in the fact that gold doesn't say, this is my self-defense gun. That says
for sure. I mean,
I'm looking for a accessory to what my normal carry is.
Right. I mean, I could forgive that. Having shot guns with and without, I guess back to back, compensated and uncompensated, things like that, they do make a difference. I think on smaller frame guns like this too, you'll notice the difference quite substantially. And I think it's smart on SIG's part, because there are so many aftermarket companies, kind of retrofitting, especially with SIG, because they did a good job on those 320s with those grip modules.
I would think the 365s are the same way.
So they're able to put, I guess a shorter slide with a compensator on the larger frame, so it all looks flush, so it doesn't look like it has this big nose sticking out there.
Right.
So there's a lot of companies doing that. Parker Mountain Machine, things like that, they make comps for these guns for a while now. But for SIG to kind of take it in-house and do it, I thought it was smart. And I love that it's integrated. It's not an external comp, so it is a part of the slide and barrel there.
Gotcha.
I like it. If it's not priced crazy.
I would assume this would probably be around 15.
Oof, I hope not.
As soon as you put custom works on it, I feel like the price.
Yeah, maybe
can be a little off.
Maybe it's a great trigger too.
I think the Spectre right now, just by itself, is like 11 or 12. So I don't think it'll be too far off from there. But no, I think that's a super cool gun. I'm really interested to see that.
So yeah, I literally just saw before we walked in here and sat down, and just kind of wanted to throw it up there. So. What I wanted to talk about is not going to be $1,500, and it's actually not even $100. It's from GPS. So GPS makes rifle bags and different range bags.
Yeah.
Some of the most popular ones we have are, it almost looks like the size of a small like soft cooler, but you open up the side kind of compartment on it, and there's like 4 or 5 individual handgun bags. So
right, yeah,
it's kind of cool, especially if you're one of those that brings a ton of guns to the range. And they're all they're not super tactical. They don't scream, hey, look at me, or hey, I got guns in here. So the thing that I have is actually that covert, they call it a single rifle case. So it's kind of a coffin style as far as the shape goes, but it looks like if you were to, I don't know, it's like the size of a tennis racket maybe, except maybe not as wide up top.
Yeah.
It has like the bungee straps here, and there's like one little piece of Velcro panel, but this to me doesn't really scream tactical. I wouldn't know that this was a gun thing if I didn't know. If
you didn't know who GPS was.
Yeah, but on the inside, and this is where I question it being one gun, is it has kind of a divider here. with straps to tie 2 down. So what I like about this, and why I mean personally purchase this, is I could carry 2. This is 30 inches long, so 2 guns that are sub 30 inches, which I mean most of the stuff I have now is even I have a PWS that is technically a pistol, but it's a piston-driven AR, 12-inch barrel, fully, compact down. It's 26 inches, so I'm able to, it will fit in this. Any of the small AKs or anything like that, I can throw in here. So, realistically, in my mind, I could put, 2 SBRs or 2, pistols in here, and probably a couple handguns as well, and be able to go to the range. So this is going to be really nice, for those days that we're doing comparison videos, and I need to bring 2 guns, from wherever to, wherever. And that way I don't have to take huge, bulky cases with me. I just have one simple little bag here. What
I've loved about this, just straight out the gate, is I think most people in the firearms industry, at least I can speak for myself in this, I'm so tired of seeing Molly on every single bag. It's like that is what makes that a tactical bag.
Yeah.
That just screams it, and that's not, something you want. Especially living in a big metroplex area. If you're just coming from, here to home, you don't want to be broadcasting to the world that, hey, I have a few firearms in here. You want something discreet just to get it done. Right. So just I think GPS kind of hit that on the head with the really tiny Velcro. Like, that's fine. You can put a name placard on there.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it can be for anything, yeah.
But that's like you said, tennis racket size bag, just a little bit thicker at the base. But I think it's a pretty cool looking bag.
Yeah, I mean, you walk out of your garage, go into your car in the morning, instead of having 2 long gun boxes or whatever and freak out the neighbors. For me, I don't want people to know what I have, or even to know that I have guns. So for me, I can put 2 of my shorter rifles or whatever in here, and just
rock out with both your shockwaves, man. You just head straight out the door, dude.
Yeah. But it's soft, it's padded. There's a nice padded divider in there too, so I don't have to worry about the guns getting all banged up or anything like that. Lightweight, and I think the MSRP for $100. I think we're selling for like 89. So these are one of the ones that kind of fly off the shelf quick for us. It's kind of a commuter sling style, or it has several carrying handles. I definitely think this is a good way to go though. So some of those bags can get super expensive, and you hate to. I mean, yeah, you want to protect your investment in your gun. You have a $1,000 or $2,000 rifle and optic, things like that. Especially if you have multiple guns, you want to beat them up. But sometimes I just don't want to carry around this huge Pelican case.
I don't want my second home inside of a bag.
Yeah, I mean, pull your guns behind your, like a trailer.
Right.
So I think that's super convenient and cool and priced right. I mean, so that's a no-brainer.
That's too easy. Yeah, I think that was a good call out on that one, and that's a newer product for us too.
Yeah, I want to say we started seeing those like maybe a month or 2 ago, but that was one of those ones I was like, when we sold out of them so fast, but then I was like, told our buyer, I'm like, hey dude, let me know next time, we put a run in those because I want one.
Nice.
So yeah,
very cool. Awesome, man.
So we kind of towards the end of things, and I know every one of these we want to do some type of introduction to our machine guns. So again, without sounding like an ad, we have close to 200 machine guns in our inventory. These are things you can come rent any day of the week.
Yep.
We also have kind of specialized packages that we've put together. So we've curated like a gamer package where you pretty much shoot popularized guns from video games.
Yep.
We have a World War II one where it's World War II guns. We have a suppressor one where it's all
we don't have any plasma pistols.
No plasma. Yeah. And then we have the modern military one too. So it's a cool sampling. It doesn't cover everything that we actually have.
Yep.
Because we have some really cool guns. We have stuff like the old Colt Bulldog, which is 1877. It's an old crank gun.
So cool.
We have the minigun too. So those things fire 6,000 rounds a minute.
Have you shot either of them?
Shot the minigun. I shot it like a small belt when we were testing it the very first time. I've been around the Gatling gun a bunch, but
yeah. Which is your favorite?
I mean, the minigun is just it's overwhelming of senses. So it shoots so fast, and the experience, when you rent that thing is over so quick, but it's such an overwhelming sensation that when people shoot it, they're like, I thought that was going on for 10 seconds or more. And you're like, no, bro, that was like 4 seconds.
Yeah.
If that. So it's it's interesting. It's one of those once in a lifetime opportunities. So,
Yep.
I mean, God, you pick out. I mean, anybody that was in the military, like, no matter their MOS, like, I doubt they shot a minigun.
Or even seen one, like,
unless they're the chief on a helicopter or something like that. Like, most of the people aren't going to get the chance.
Even
to shoot.
still, some of those dudes are rocking 240s and 50s. Like,
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's still super specialized, but I think you said it right. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity. If you've never experienced that, or you want the ultimate flex, with your buddies, coming and dropping 500 on it is too easy
For sure.
to do.
The other part of that is our Full Auto Fridays. Every Friday we do discounted magazine rentals. We pick out 4 guns, so they rotate. So even if you just came on Fridays for those discounted ones, if you come long enough, man, you'll hit all the guns.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's really cool. It's fun to talk about, but I figure since we have so many of them, every week we'll kind of introduce and kind of talk about a new one. And since I kind of went hard on the PDW theme, and then last week we talked about the HK MP7.
MP7.
So talking about stuff not available to the poors.
Now we do have the Banshees though.
That's right. Yeah, the 4.6. Yeah.
So if you want something in that caliber, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're selling 2 boxes of ammo if you decide to buy it.
Yeah. So it's one of those things. The Banshees are CMMG. It's kind of an AR style, but it shoots at 4.6, which are really potent caliber. But nobody was really making ammo for it, so it was hard to get. So that being said, yeah, we actually are making ammo available for those who are purchasing that gun.
So if that's what's been holding you back, come see us. We can get you hooked up.
But and I kind of hit on it earlier when we were talking about the Kel-Tec stuff. 5.7. So 5.7's been, around since the late '80s, but is really created by FN for NATO. They're like, hey, we need something that's smaller than 9mm, but that's more effective at range, that has some, body armor,
some rifle characteristics.
It can defeat body armor. So it needs to act like a rifle caliber, but it needs to be a kind of a pistol caliber, right? So FN did just that.
FN's like, we've been waiting for this.
Yeah, right.
Let's go.
In the FN 5.7. So, and if you want to pull that up real quick.
Yeah, I got you.
One of the first guns that they really introduced was the FN P90. So, this is probably older than what most people think. It was actually created or produced in 1990 and is still produced now. Do you remember the first time you ever saw this thing? Saw a P90? Whether in pop culture or
my
whatever?
Dreams. Several movies, and I was thinking about this earlier. I was like, oh, this is so cool. And right now I'm so sad I'm drawing a blank.
So
throw me a
first
bone.
time I ever saw this thing was actually in a video game. Metal Gear Solid 2. The main bad guy, which was like Solid as Snake.
Yeah.
He was dual wielding these things, and he was kind of like the Doc Ock. So he had all these arms and dual wielding these things. I'm like, what are those badass things?
Yeah.
But then I got to thinking too, like there was a gun in James Bond GoldenEye, and I want to say it was like the RCP or something like that. And I could probably look it up here.
Google is your mother.
Yeah,
so let's try it out.
So, and I want to say they may have called this thing out before that Metal Gear game did. Like, I'm sure there's other things, but I just remember so vividly.
You know what? Before you type that in, type in just P90.
Nope, RCP90.
Oh, you're too fast.
I knew it.
Too fast. RCP90.
So,
yes, I mean that's it.
Yeah, so
that's it.
I retract my statement of Metal Gear being the first one, but it was
GoldenEye.
It was GoldenEye, yeah, and this is kind of what it was a very boxy looking thing, but they had such a high cyclic rate, and they were devastating. You got it towards the end of the game or in multiplayer. So this was probably the first time a lot of people were introduced to it. But we are digressing very much.
Was the gun OP in the game?
Yes. So what is the P90 really? They created this thing again, the PDW. So it's a personal defense weapon. It is and it's present state. They do make a civilian version of this,
PS90,
which is the PS90, but it's a select fire space gun pretty much. It's really cool. So the safety and the selector is all like right underneath the trigger there. So there's a little dial that you can spin. Yeah, it's a little twist knob. And it looks super funky, but it's actually very ergonomic. It was one of those ones that I grabbed immediately, and I was like, "Oh, this
makes
well
sense.
thought out." Yeah. You know, the big thing is capacity too. So it has that 50 round, box mag up top, but that magazine's pretty trippy the way it works because all the rounds
so weird, man.
sit sideways. So
did you ever load it?
No.
Nothing makes you feel more dumb
than
trying to load this thing for the first time.
So pretty much, the gun's facing one way, and all the rounds are facing to the right. So they're literally 90 degrees of the muzzle, and as the rounds are fed into the gun, pretty much there's a feeding mechanism on the magazine that is like spring-loaded, and it
twists.
Yeah, so like twists them into the right orientation. That being said, it has a really high cyclic rate, and the spent casings actually fall out of the bottom here on the backside. So, it's actually, they're coming out kind of by your elbow area. So you don't have, it's 100% ambidextrous. You don't have anything coming out, in front of you, impairing you. Yeah, it's 1,100 rounds a minute. So it has a pretty screaming.
It's coming out hot. Yeah. When you talk about the twist mechanism, it reminds me of like the gumball machines. As a kid, with like the 25 cents, you flip it real quick. That is how that's kind of that system works. The first time I shot it, I said, "Oh my gosh!" Like this was super cool. I think it was one of those nostalgia points, like check it off my list kind of thing. And I've always loved it. I would say probably like talking video game wise, Call of Duty, of course, blew this gun out. And I can promise you that it's way better than your Xbox controller.
Yeah.
So it's pretty sweet to do. And what's also cool about it is it comes with 3 sights, standard to the gun. So you have a sight on each side of the rails, and then on top, looking underneath the Picatinny, it'll actually be your 3rd sight point. So no matter what angle you have this, whether you're switching left or right, you have sight options. And then, of course, you can attach lights, lasers, bayonets, whatever.
Stuff. Yeah, it's interesting because it's definitely one of the most funky looking machine guns we have, but it's also one of the easiest to shoot. And I know I said that about the last one, about that 4.6 MP7, but it's true. So the 5.7 round is pretty small. I mean, it's tiny, really.
100%.
But it's like a 5.56 round that's just miniaturized. I mean, just with a really small case. A lot of energy out of the thing.
It's zooming when it's barrel.
Yeah, and that's what defeats body armor, so the speed, so it doesn't need to be that big of a caliber.
It's not heavy or anything. But
the thing that they found, though, and that's maybe why 5.7, with the inclusion of more manufacturers making firearms in that caliber, why it could be good for personal defense is ballistically, it is kind of on par with 9mm.
Right.
So even though it's tiny, it is moving at light speed. So it can defeat body armor, and it has 9mm type ballistics. So it's a really cool round. The downside is it was only made by FN. Only FN made the firearms that shot it. So it was kind of an exclusive.
Monopolized, yeah.
Yeah. So now more there's more ammunition manufacturers making that round. There's more manufacturers making the guns in that caliber. Yep. So I think, again, back to Kel-Tec, they made, I think...
P50.
Well, they have the P50, but now they have the P57, which is...
The actual pistol?
Yes, which is very similar to the Ruger 5.7.
Okay.
Except it holds 23 rounds or whatever. And the price of it is going to be $500.
Oh, yeah.
So $500, the Ruger's like $900, the FN 5.7, they're all named the same thing. Well, I want to say that was like $1,200-$1,300. So...
It was like 13. Ruger was like 7, but still, the P57 coming in at like $500, $600.
It's just bringing that cost of entry into that round a lot lower. So I'm hoping this is a cool trend, that's going to continue, because it's a cool round. You get a lot of capacity. If it was more available and there's I guess more platforms supporting it, I'd switch to a 5.7. So
your daily carry a 5.7?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why not?
I mean, I would do it at least once, right?
Right. The machine gun, though, it's one of those ones where, I guess all that said, it's still a very soft shooting round, especially in a platform like this. We get new shooters that their first time shooting a gun is at an event. They're here doing a bachelorette party, and it's a bunch of girls in dresses that never shot guns before, and this is the first thing that I've ever shot, and it's a blast for them. And they're not, running it all up the ceiling and all over the place because it's super controllable. So
easily.
It's just really cool, to get in the hands of first-time shooters just because it's so easy.
Absolutely. And if I had to say something between this and be like your standard AR-15 style, like we do have M4s and Bren 805s and stuff like that, I would rather see someone that's brand new shooter shoot this, just because of that fact it is so easy to control. The recoil is negligible at best.
Right.
Versus some of those, even 5.56 caliber stuff that we have down there can get going pretty fast.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if someone's not a seasoned shooter. Like, most people that even do shoot often, like their stance and their body mechanics are just terrible, right? So it's just, you get a machine gun where there's multiple rounds going off in seconds, it really magnifies the flaws in their stance.
The holes in the game.
Yeah, so, anyway, the FNP90 is, I think we have like 8 of them.
It's not enough.
You can't come dual wield it, but it is.
But if you and your buddies want to shoot it and something were to happen, don't worry, we do have others.
Right.
We will make sure everyone gets a chance to shoot a P90 if they want to.
It's definitely one of the favorites. It's probably one of the cooler, I think, experiences you can get at most places. Like, we have a lot of cool stuff coming, but it's, as far as like spacey and like high tech stuff, P90's I think a hit. We can even run them suppressed too.
Oh yeah, and then next time you're on Xbox Live, you can be like, bro, they'll be like, oh man, I got a P90. You're like, that's cool. I actually shot one.
Yeah, that's cool. The cyclo ray is actually more like this. And then
down the rabbit hole you go.
Got pwned, son. So yeah, that's a cool one, man. So I thought it would be appropriate to bring that out right after the MP7, and that they still use these things around the world, man. There's special forces, there's police units. Literally all around the world. And this was a NATO adopted firearm and round. So it's cool because it's kind of a piece of history while also being super high tech.
Absolutely. And I think it's near history, right? It's not at least my parents talk about it. It's slightly before me.
Right.
It's slightly before me to start. But no, like it's super cool because it's still relevant now.
Yeah, it's fun. Like the little Easter egg, like I guess it's not, but like finding out like that is the GoldenEye gun, like things like that. It is cool.
GoldenEye was my time period before I get ripped apart. But yes.
No, dude, I remember like that was like I didn't have a 64, but I remember I would go rent one. You'd go rent one from like Blockbuster, and you'd rent the games or whatever, and you'd have little sleepovers and all the kids come together and you play.
What was the first game system you had?
I had a Nintendo.
Okay, like Super Nintendo?
No, like Nintendo.
Oh, straight Nintendo. Okay, gotcha.
And then, so I went from Nintendo. I had a family member that had a Sega that I would always go over and play.
Sega Dreamcast, man.
No, like the
original Sega?
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact, they used to have what was called Sega Channel.
Okay.
It fed into your house like a coax cable, like your normal
like cable.
And every month it was like Netflix, but for Sega video games. So
Netflix is so not original.
Right. So all like the Sonics, of course, like Road Rash and all these crazy games. Yeah, but all the Mega Mans. But I remember. The 4 split screen GoldenEye days.
Absolutely. What was it? Perfect Dark,
Duke Nukem, all that stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
But so it is cool. Kind of a little blast from a not so far past.
Yeah, man, I feel old talking right now.
Well, maybe. Some guys were like, Modern Warfare 2 was out when I was born.
Yeah.
Okay. But cool, man. Yeah, so that's kind of the end of the show. I do want to kind of just remind everybody that, we're doing a lot as far as not just the podcast, but, as far as video goes. So, if you actually, if you can't make it here, maybe you're in a different state, whatever. Our YouTube channel is a great resource because not only are we going through and doing like reviews on product, things like that, and it's not BS stuff too. No one's paying us. It's literally just, hey, the features and benefits and like the real life, how does it feel in your hand? We're doing that with our machine guns too. So you'll get a chance to kind of get all the, kind of the sexy slow-mo and really all the in detail information on these guns, and go over them a lot more in depth as well too. So, when we do a video on this, we'll go into the actual pedigree of the who, the what, the why,
The specifications.
yeah, and really more in detail of the firearm. So, if you haven't yet, please check us out at YouTube. Make sure to subscribe to that, and of course our social media too. So
Let's say Instagram, Facebook is where you'll see
Yeah,
us heaviest at, and then make sure you drop comments below. If you see something, you have questions, or you want to see something next, please let us know.
if there's any questions, whether it's stuff that we covered, if like this episode was constitutional carry, last one we talked about SHOT Show stuff. If there's questions or comments or things that maybe we'd like to be introduced as a talking point, I mean, we're all for it. So we're in the kind of the industry. No questions done, man. So we'd be happy to field anything like that. We would encourage it.
Absolutely. Cool. Brian?
Cool. All right, man. All right, yeah, this is the end of it. I appreciate y'all for checking us out.
In case listeners want to know, what do you want to talk about next week?
Man, put me on the spot.
Carter, what do you want to talk about next week?
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. I do think we're going to have a pretty good versus segment, though.
Yeah?
Yes.
All right, I'm excited.
Yes.
No CP33s.
No CP33s, but there will be some surprises, I think.
Cool. Awesome.
All right, guys, we'll check you out next week.